Okay,
Real buddy on this tour, which is great.
welcome to the December 2013 Douglas County Board of Education meeting, and we will begin with student and staff recognitions led by our superintendent. And I'm going to ask Director Larson and Director Mendoza to assist with recognizing our award recipients this evening.
Good evening. Ooh, that was a loud one. Good evening, everyone. The Board of Education is always proud to recognize the achievement of our students, staff, and community. Tonight, we focus on some very talented student artists. You probably remember that we had sort of a culinary theme one evening. This is going to be an art theme this evening. So, the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards, the country's longest running and most prestigious award and recognition program for creative teenagers. Recently, the 2013 National Scholastic Art Award recipients were announced, and 2 Douglas County School District students were among the honorees. Let's have Carter Daughtry and Andy Schumann come up, please. Carter is a Thunder Ridge High School junior who received a National Gold Medal for her sculpture, Urban Warrior, and Andy, a junior at Highlands Ranch High School, received a silver medal for his design titled Mod Art Publication. So tell us a little bit about that, would you?
My Mod Art publication was an urban design magazine, and the prompt was to make any magazine you wanted, so I decided to make one with more of a commercial side than as like a graphic design magazine or something. So I really wanted to incorporate commercial aspects with fine art aspects.
Great, and so you want to tell us a little bit about your sculpture? I'm going to put you on the spot.
No, I originally wanted to create a three-dimensional woman, but it kind of turned into an old man. So I've been really interested in the Native American scene. Their story is really interesting, so I based my artwork around that.
Amazing, that's great. I can understand. I liked art and I had that experience. Both works were first selected as Gold Key recipients at the Scholastic Art Awards of Colorado. As a gold medalist, Carter's artwork will be displayed in New York City as part of a national exhibition. Both will be recognized at a celebration at Carnegie Hall on May 31st, and her mixed media sculpture will be on display at Parsons, the new school for design, until June 15th. Congratulations to both Carter and Andy for achieving this national award. Well done.
All right, bring it to over next year.
1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Good job.
Okay, as I said, tonight's focus is on art and the artists in our school district. Next, we have the honor of celebrating many great student artists whose work stood out during the recent district art show at Park Meadows Mall. Each year, the Board of Education has the pleasure of leasing several pieces of art from students of all ages throughout our school district. Each student receives a check in exchange for their work, which is displayed throughout the district administration offices. Our teachers select the winners during the district art show. They judge the artwork at the show, choosing 12 pieces representing 4 age groups and 3 regions of the district, including Castle Rock, Parker, and Highlands Ranch. Artists receive $25 at the primary level, which is kindergarten through 3rd grade, $50 at the intermediate level, 4th through 6th grade, $75 at the middle level representing 7th and 8th graders, and $100 at high school level, 9th through 12th graders. We're extremely fortunate to have such a strong art program in our school district. The work selected this year are exceptional and will make a wonderful addition to the board's collection. We'll begin with our budding artists in the elementary grades. From primary, kindergarten through 3rd grades, again, they receive a lease payment of $25. First, we'll have Mackenzie Harrison, a 2nd grader from Acres Green Elementary, teacher Judy Albright. Mackenzie, please come up if you're here.
She's not here.
Oh, she's not here, okay. We'll move on. Allison Orlikowski, a 2nd grader from Pioneer Elementary, teacher Liz Marcus. Come on up.
Oh, good job.
Okay, here we go. One, oh, sure.
We want to see you.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Good job. Congratulations.
Gotta do a 360 here so we can see.
Nice, so good.
Good job.
Okay. So Randy, do you want everybody to stay, or do you?
That's short. Okay, yeah.
Oh, she did?
Yeah, we can have a group picture. We have-
Why don't we have you stand right over there? Right there, perfect.
Okay, next, I'd like to invite Michelle Ariano, a first grader from Sedalia Elementary, teacher Suzanne Pisano, to come up. Is she here? No?
We accept this on her.
We accept this on her behalf. Yeah, good job. Dr. Mendoza has an art degree. She accepts it on her behalf. We'll definitely get these to the students. Next, from the intermediate, the 4th through 6th grades, recipients, again, $50, are Isabel Bowen, a 6th grader from Stone Mountain Elementary, teacher Jill Caven.
Yes, good job.
Okay, next, we'd like to introduce and invite up Summer Offenhartz, a 4th grader from Renaissance Magnet. Here she comes. Teacher is Pam Trevor.
Wow. There you go. I'll switch with you so I can have a picture. Oh my gosh, right. There you go. And did you get it?
One more.
Up right there?
1,
Okay.
2, 3.
Good job.
Congratulations. Okay, next we'd like to invite McKenna Hune, a 5th grader from Pine Grove Elementary, teacher Leslie Garamoni.
She'll hold the art, you hold it.
Okay, here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Congratulations.
Our 7th and 8th grade middle school artists, recipients of $75, are Julie Ghosh, an 8th grader from Platte River Academy. Teacher is Christopher Hecker.
You give it to me and I'll switch. Yeah. Wow, beautiful. Hi. Teacher. We'll take a picture for you. Oh, here, it's yours. Yeah. Look at it. They are, of course. They're artistic.
Okay, here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
All right. Did we get it? Oh. Oh, hey. All right, thank you. Congratulations, well done.
Next, Jackie Charles, an 8th grader from Castle Rock Middle School. Teacher Colleen McIver.
Wow, beautiful. 1, 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3.
Congratulations.
Next, Mason Albertson, an 8th grader from Cimarron Middle School. Teacher is Linda Tong. Come on up.
Wow. Congratulations. Wow. Okay, here we go. Push over here. There you go.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. And one more time. 1, 2, 3.
All right. Thank you. Congratulations.
Okay, finally, students representing our district high schools, recipients of $100 tonight, are Vera Frolove, a senior at Highlands Ranch High School, teacher John Cushing.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. One more time. 1, 2.
Great job. Okay, and finally, Tamar I was pronouncing her name, practicing for a while. I'm going to see how I do here, so Tamar, you can tell me. Hedda Sheehan, from a junior from Douglas County High School, teacher Brooke Spiegel.
Okay, here we go, guys. Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2.
Congratulations. Before I move on, I've got everyone, right? There's nobody who arrived late and that we've moved past. Everyone's been recognized, just want to make sure. Okay. Let's everybody scooch over here so we can have a big picture. We may have to have 2 rows.
I'm used to that spot myself.
All right.
You'll be all right.
Just start my question. Okay, are we ready? We are ready. Big smiles. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Can you say it one more time? 1, 2, 3. Awesome.
Okay, let's have one more round of applause for all of our amazing artists and we would like to express our appreciation to each of you for letting us share your art and talent with all the visitors to the Douglas County School District. Thank you so much, and a special thanks to your teachers who obviously have been amazingly supportive in your artistic careers. Thank you for all of you who are here tonight and for supporting the Douglas County Young Artists. Thank you very much. And that concludes our awards for this evening.
Open up, yeah. Good God, I go. If anybody could knock it over, it'd be me.
Congratulations to you. That's awesome. Wherever you want.
Advisory Group 2013 Progress Report. You want to make the introductions, Megan? Director Sullivan? Okay, we'll go ahead with the Student Advisory Group.
Okay, well, I am the board liaison to the Student Advisory Group, as most of you guys know, and that is one of my favorite groups. These guys are amazing. This year our schedule's been a little bit crazy, but our students are always ready to tell us what they think, and they are here tonight to present to us what they've been doing all year. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Derek Cheney, who is the advisor for the Student Advisory Group. And he's been doing an amazing job with our students. So Mr. Cheney, please take the reins.
Just a few things I want to mention before we get to Keon and Sophie. The Student Advisory Group, as you know, is a committee of the board. Thank you. Committee of the board, and whatever, it's kind of a two-way street. The students get an opportunity to voice their opinion, and as Megan knows, they'll express it in appropriate ways, and then they'll let us know how they feel. And we also like to use them as a focus group when we feel some important decision needs to be made, and we want some student input on it. So I just want to formally recognize Keon and Sophie for the outstanding job that they did. Normally, the Student Advisory Group president is saved, I guess, for a senior or designated for a senior. But Keon and Sophie have done just an outstanding job. They're our first junior presidents that we've had. As freshmen, they developed a Student Voices website for us. It's linked to our website, and it gives students an opportunity to express their opinion. And these two are members of that. They started that. They came to me with the help of Mr. Weiss, who I think is in the crowd tonight. Mr. Weiss, Activities Director of Thunder Ridge, had a lot to do with helping them get that. So appreciate you guys doing that. Director Silverford, thank you so much for your support. Let the students have an opportunity to sit on the dais with you guys. I think it's been important, and I know as you heard from them, they want to continue to improve that and getting more of our student advisory members to sit on the dais. But so many people to thank for this, but I just want to formally thank Sophie and Keon for your efforts this year. You guys, that first one was to do the summer meetings. I don't think anybody tried the summer meetings. You got some groups together in the summer. You just took the bull by the horns and got it going this year. And I just appreciate all your help and made it a lot easier. So I'd just like to formally recognize Sophie and Keon. Come on up, please.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cheney. We really appreciate everything that you've done for us as well. Without you, this group wouldn't be where it is today, so we really appreciate you as well. Can we give them a round of applause? Board of Education, it's an honor to be presenting to you tonight. We've been working hard this past year to get projects and work with our students to advise. So here's our year review, and I'm a little bit sick, so sorry if I squeak or something.
Okay, so as Mr. Cheney said, we're the first group to hold summer meetings, which was super beneficial. We were able during these summer meetings to give the students a brief of the budget, which was very nice because whenever some issue came up later in the year and students were like, why is this like this? The students that attended the summer meetings were like, oh, I know why that's like that. So that was very nice to have. We also discussed sustainability at our summer meetings, which we thought that since operating costs is such a huge percent of the district's budget, we thought that could be something that we could focus on later, and we'll talk about that more later. And we also discussed at these meetings school choice, which is a huge part of Douglas County right now. And as a student advisory group, we came to the conclusion that school choice is really good because students have the opportunity to get further in programs that they want to. For example, the Pro Start group at Thunderbridge is a great opportunity for students who want culinary arts to get into that. However, school choice shouldn't be to the point where you can only go to this one school if you want one thing. It should be, most schools should be well-rounded, but have those strong programs as well.
So throughout the year, we had a visitor at pretty much every meeting. So at our first meeting, we had Marsha Alston, who was from the Youth Congress, which is held every year at the beginning of the year downtown. And it's basically a project that students from 8th grade all the way through 12th grade get together to talk about new ideas and issues such as, Kiana and I were in the group of truancy. Other people talked about incorporating technology into the 21st century learning, basic ideas such as that. So she recruited members from us. We also had Lee Smith, Andrew Bunker, and Bridget McCreary from the District Sustainability Committee. Because as we were talking earlier, we were really thinking about how we can improve sustainability and how we can reduce, reuse, and recycle in order to both help with the environment and help with efficiency costs. So we ended up basically letting them go their own thing because it sounds like they have a program already in progress that really helps schools, provide an incentive for schools to really reduce their energy costs. So we decided that us doing a separate project wasn't really going to help. Mike Harity from Hometown News, he is basically an entrepreneur for like a startup news company, and so he came to us to be a focus group to ask basically what students want to see in news. Like if he's created this new website, and how does he want to attract our age group? And so basically what we said mostly is our sports and our activities, is we wanted to see how were all the clubs at our schools doing, how are our teams doing, are we winning, are we awesome, things like that. And also any other district news, anything that's going to impact our education, anything that's going to impact our lives, new laws, anything like that. Lori Bachtel came to us also as a focus group for the future magnet school, which I don't know where it's being built, but it's in the process of planning. So 6 of our members attended a meeting to answer questions such as, what do you want to see from teachers? What kind of a design space would help your learning best? Do you want open spaces? Do you want closed spaces? What kind of desks do you want? Should they be movable? How many surfaces do you want to write on? Things like that. That way they can start hiring an architect to start building the school. Terry Wood from Healthy Schools came to us and taught us some really fun things that will help your health. Very simple. So something like you're supposed to be breathing out of your stomach and not out of your shoulders. So that's apparently bad, but it's fun little things like that that can help your health and increase your energy.
So at our first meeting, we had Dr. Fagan and Mr. McMenemy there, and Dr. Fagan presented to us the idea of creativity and what companies such as Google are looking for in their employees, and all the students love that, because they love the idea of being able to be creative and not necessarily having to know facts, but knowing how to apply them. They love that idea. We also had Mr. McMenemy come and discuss the 6 of 8 schedule, and he gave us each a form saying, how do you feel about this schedule? What do you like about it? What do you not like? Things like that. And overall, student advisory group had mixed reactions because different schools handled the 6 of 8 schedule differently. Some schools have more advisement time. Some schools got rid of advisement time and seminar or homeroom. So that was kind of a mixed reaction. But overall, a lot of the students like the 6 of 8 because of the off periods that they can have. We also had Denny Ingram, who is in charge of the Life Outdoor Ed Center. And he came to us with a problem in the community service guidelines. It says that you cannot have any community service hours completed during school hours without prior approval of the principal. So since high schoolers were going up for 3 or 4 days at a time to help out, that fell under that not okay section. So he came to us asking what should be accepted, what should not be accepted. And as a student advisory group, we agreed that what should be accepted is from any time that they were awake and working. So from the morning at like 6 or 7 until night whenever everyone was in bed at like 10. And then the time that they're sleeping does not count for that. We have also had Directors Larson and Silverthorne at many of our meetings to help answer questions that any of the members had regarding basically anything about the school district.
Some of the projects we covered this year is, as I said, Youth Congress. We recruited a lot of members to Youth Congress, so we had a lot of input with any of the new and creative ideas that they were progressing there. High school schedules, we talked for probably hours on end, and Mr. McMenemy would know because he was there for all of them. Our students had a lot to say about the 6 of 8 schedule because that was really like the biggest impact and the biggest change from this year. But as Kiana said, overall the 6 of 8 part, just having 6 out of 8 periods was good because we did have reduced class size and we did have the same amount of class choice, and it was nice having those off periods. But what really concerned, especially our high achievers in student advisory group, was that there was a reduced academic access time. So instead of having an hour and a half to go visit teachers, some schools only had 40 minutes and some schools had 0 minutes. But it was kind of hard to come to a conclusion since all of the high schools handled it differently. We just ended up recommending to Mr. McMenemy that we wanted academic access time, and that's really where we went with it. Teacher notes, we really felt that we wanted to make sure that teachers were being appreciated, so we had each member write 3 notes to their favorite teachers to tell them how awesome they are and how much of an impact they make on our lives every day. And then community service was basically our big project of the spring. We were inspired by Mr. Ingram to really look at the community service guidelines and some of the questions because the last time they were revised was several years ago. So there's some new changes that we want to look at, and we'll actually talk about that later in the latter half of the presentation.
Right, so our goals for next year are to have attendance at all board meetings. So this year it was hard because it was one of the first years that we tried getting students at all meetings, but next year we're going to have either one of us co-presidents and someone else, or both of us, at every single meeting. We also want to increase collaboration with the Board of Education. So we want to know, what exactly do you guys want from us? What feedback do you want from us? What student input do you want? And we can go and get that. We also talked more about working with Terry Woods and Healthy Schools because there's so many simple little things that you can do to make your life healthier. And we thought that would be a really good program to introduce to our high schools. Also the Student Voices website that Mr. Cheney mentioned, we would like to maintain that more, put up more articles, get more student feedback, and also get the word out that it's there so students know that they have that opportunity to learn and give feedback through that website. And we would also like to conduct student forums, which we did last year, however, we didn't have time this year. So that's something that we really wanted to do, is conduct a student forum with the Board of Education. So we'll talk about that next one.
Okay, so that was basically our year in review. That's what we did in 2012 and 2013 year. For the latter half of this presentation, we would like to present to you a reformed and revised community service guidelines and questions. So we handed out packets to all of you, so if you would like to take a look at them. I also have these are the pages on the slides to guide you through where we made some changes and why we made them. So this is just the first page of the document. It's your basic information. It's your basic information, what it. Okay. Wait. Okay, there we go. I put it on play. Sorry. Okay. This is the basic information. It's where you put your organization, where you did your address to make sure, and then it's like contact number of who you did it for to make sure that it was verified. Just your basic things like that. We are going to keep this page exactly the same because we feel that it covers all the information needed and it's not really in need of reform. So, this is the current reflection page. So, these are 6 questions, basically asking the student to reflect on what service learning they did and why they did it, what did they get from the experience. And we wanted to change this page because we felt that having 6 short questions really skipped around and not all of the questions particularly applied to what the student was doing. So we changed them to 2 big questions. And so the 5 questions that we chose for them to pick out of were, how was your experience? How did this impact the community? What did you share? Should more citizens participate in this kind of community service and why? And how did this experience affect your understanding of the community? So we wanted to pick 2 big questions because we really wanted the students to focus on what did they most get from the service learning. And we wanted them to go in depth and really pull something out of it, rather than being able to put down short, like 1 to 2 sentence answers, and just not really actually tell us what they learned. So here students can focus on basically 2 separate parts. They can either focus on what they got out of it or what the community gets out of it. So they could say, well, I really enjoyed this because I love working with animals and I love going to an animal shelter. Or they can say that, well, I worked at a homeless shelter and it really helped the community because all of these people that don't have homes are really impacted, and I helped someone and I really benefited someone. So the other thing we changed was the guidelines. So these are the current guidelines, and what we changed basically was any service learning hours completed during school hours without prior approval of principal, which we really was brought to the attention by Denny Ingram, because especially with the 6 of 8 schedule, there's a lot of off periods, and with off campus, you can go anywhere if you're a sophomore, junior, senior, so there's a lot of opportunity during school hours to be somewhere else, to be helping someone, to be doing volunteer hours. So we think that this should be basically just taken out of the guidelines. And if you look at your last page, it's just gone. Because there's a lot, if someone has 6th and 8th off, especially in our school, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they'll get off at 11 o'clock, and they could be spending the latter half of the day doing something that'll help the community. The other thing we focused on was, it says more than 5 hours of service learning performed for a school, team, club activity, or faculty member. So what we wanted to change about this is change it to more than 25% of service learning being performed by a school, club, team activity. Because 25% is still going to have 5 out of 20 hours, but since all of these rules apply to people who want a letter, who are going for 100, 200, 500 hours of community service, it's really not fair to limit them to only 5 hours of community service, because they could be doing a whole lot of opportunities at the school, such as helping out at all sorts of banquets, helping out at anything else that the school organized. So it's still going to remain exactly the same for only those 20 hours, but we really wanted to help out those high achievers with the guidelines.
Okay, so as Sophie said, the reason that we wanted to change this is because it allows for students to focus on what they've learned. So the previous questions may have asked something like, why did you pick this activity? Do you have an interest in this area? If someone is, for example, getting just their hours in order to graduate, they're not going to have a really good explanation on that, and so it's not going to be a good reflection on what they've done for community service. So by allowing them to pick 2 out of 5, not only are you allowing them to focus more on what they want, but it also gives students more opportunity to kind of figure out what applies more to them. Also, this gives choice for the student. So Douglas County loves choice, so that's another thing that we really wanted to focus on, is allowing the students to choose instead of giving them, here's 6 things, ready, do it. Letting them pick what applies to them, how they can benefit. As Sophie said, it adapts to the 6 of 8 schedule and off campus. So that is really, really helpful because a lot of kids have off periods. So that's a great opportunity, especially when certain places only offer community service at certain times. If you have an off period, you can go get it. And it also allows more opportunities for service. Like I just said, you can go during different times when there's less people or when they need people there. And also for that you can do it in schools is good because it'll help the school. If a student can only get 5 hours, then they're not going to want to spend all their time helping the school. So also by changing this, it allows the school to get more help as well, which is really great. So we also got feedback from our Thunderbridge administration. They all really liked the idea. They loved the ability to choose, and like I said, that they could get more help in the school was really beneficial. Students around the district, Sophie and I talked to plenty of people, and they all loved it because they always said, "Oh, I hate filling out those 6 questions, and they're all the same, and they don't apply to me." But by changing it to choosing 2, they were able to pick which ones they want, which they can answer the easiest, which would help them reflect the most. And of course, the student advisory group members were the ones who helped create this. They were the ones who decided, okay, this is what we're going to take out, this is what we're going to put in, and these are the questions that we're going to have. We spent a lot of time discussing why we should take this out and reform it, and this is the final product. So, are there any questions?
Director Larson? Great presentation, thank you. It's been fun to visit with you various times in the year. I'm excited that you want to invite the board to another forum in the next year. I enjoyed when we did that about a year ago. And I know you, in general, you covered a number of topics that you really looked at from a student's perspective, addressing and have that feedback. Is there anything more specific you would elaborate on, any particular one that really stands out as something you want us to understand or know? I think you've done it with this community service forum, but are there any others that you want to make sure we don't wait 2-3 months down or just into the next school year that you want our attention to be focused on with you right away?
No, we definitely covered what we wanted to focus on to you guys in the presentation. The biggest thing we talked about was at those summer meetings, we really had to spend time on basically just integrating everyone into what we already knew. So there was a lot of time spent on conveying information and getting them informed. And so that's something that I guess we didn't convey in here, is that we had discussion, but there was a lot of us telling them things as well, because we've been here and we've been participating for a couple of years, but they just joined, they don't know what's going on, and they need to be informed to make decisions.
Also, for next year, we're also allowing sophomores to join the group, which will be a huge thing because a lot of the seniors, especially towards the end of the year, have a lot. Like at Thunderbridge specifically, they have senior projects, other places, college applications, testing, everything. So we decided to open up to sophomores because that'll be a good opportunity also for them, because the changes that we make in the student advisory group will apply to them more than it will to the seniors. So that is another part of that presentation.
Okay. Well, I asked you for others that you have for us now. I got one for you I'd like to just ask that, and the subject's been covered. In regards to the 6 of 8 schedule, and I know there's, from a kid's perspective, having more off periods can always sound great, but is that always the best? But what I want to know, from your own experiences or from others in the group, the other students that you associate with and interact, for those, and you even said some of the high achievers that may want to take 7, may want to take 8 in some particular instances, and I think in the beginning of the year there may have been more challenge in doing that. Did that change mid-semester, or are you finding as you sign up for courses next year, for those who wish to take a 7th class, are there barriers to that, or is it actually working out? For those who want to do it, the option's there.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the option's there. I'm taking 7 classes this year and next year, and I had no problems signing up for any of those. And it's super helpful because having those block periods is really nice. And then I have 2nd period off, so that's really nice to sleep in when I stay up until like 1 doing homework. So for me, the 6 of 8 has been really helpful, and to get all my classes in is also amazing, because with the other schedule, I wouldn't have been able to take 7 classes and still had time for me to like rest and recover. So I really like that.
Yeah, same as Kiana. We haven't heard, at least I don't remember hearing anything from any of the student advisory group members or any of our friends that they had barriers getting into 7th grade classes. Because the 6 of 8 was mostly for like the majority of the school, so your average achievers are going to be taking 6 of 8 classes, so they're not really worried. But then the specialized classes could get smaller, and teachers had time to teach them, and getting 7 and 8 classes for a student was perfectly reasonable to get everyone into, so it wasn't a problem at all, at least 7 and 8 age.
Thank you.
Dr. Richardson and then Director Williams.
First of all, what a remarkable presentation, 2 remarkable young women. Very compelling, very cogent, panoramic presentation of student thoughts. And a presentation of why we should be very hopeful about this country. So thank you for the work that went into this and for the display of your talent and your thoughtfulness. I'm very proud of you, very proud of this district, and proud of the adults who contributed to who you've become. I like your ideas for the community service form changes. I think they're brilliant and very thoughtful and creative. Do we have any objection to any of those or concerns from staff about making those kinds of changes?
No, we spent a little time in their meetings visiting with them, and all of those really add flexibility to the process, which I think is really important. And so, I appreciated their thoughts, and they put together a great package, and I think it's going to work really well in our high schools.
And what action do we need, if any, to take to implement this and to make sure that the hard work of these 2 young ladies is reality?
Well, I just think if you all think this is a great idea, we can move forward with it and change the forms and get those out to our schools and talk with our high school principals and counselors about the changes. They really fit what we've become over the last 5 or 6 years.
I don't know as a matter of our formal governance policy that a board vote is necessary, but as a matter of acknowledging to some extent the great work of our student advisory committee, I'd like to put it to a vote. Can we do that, Mr. President? I move that we adopt the changes that have been suggested by the student advisory committee with respect to modification of the district's community service documentation form.
All right, and as we discuss it, I'll go ahead and let the other directors ask any questions you have. Director Williams?
It was absolutely terrific. I remember you guys from Youth Congress too. It's a fun day, huh? When you guys had lots of discussions, I know over the summer you're trying to bring a lot of students up to speed on the budget discussions. Is there any feedback that generally you got the same kind of response from the students that you want to share with us?
Bewilderment. There's a lot of numbers that we tried to show them, and it was basically, we did basically the same presentation that Ms. Betts does, showing like the quarter financial reports, but we did just kind of like a 2011, 2012, like where the expenses went and how they came in, how the process of where all the student funding came from. And so honestly, bewilderment would be the correct response because they didn't really know what to do with it yet.
I think, like Sophie said, they looked at it and they were like, oh my gosh, that's so many numbers. But after we talked about it a lot of the students were like, oh, that makes sense then why this is like this. So I think that was really, really helpful for the students. And I think that's something that we need to try and do more of, is educating those students on simple things like that. Like if we make a simple presentation of the budget, which Sophie and I have, we just want to get that out to more students because it's easy for them to hear from everywhere. But when they hear from like other students, then they're like, oh, that must be what's up. Because they hear different versions, I guess you would say. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like there are definitely, perspective is good, but at the same time, hearing from fellow students is really beneficial to them because they're able to really connect with us, and it's not a bunch of jargon. Like, it's in terms that they understand.
That's great.
Yeah, actually, no, sorry, I'm just
No,
Kiana, understanding was a great thing because we have had reduced funding in the last couple of years, and so a lot of the students, especially since they've had like several levels of filter down, like through teachers, through parents, through whoever, they get a very limited understanding of how it works, and then they're like, why doesn't this magically just have money? Like, why didn't we magically just get this? And once they understand how much of a process and how much let's understand. Yeah, you can't just put magic number places.
You know, actually, the federal government actually does that.
Yeah, so understanding of, oh, there actually needs to be like a lot of work and a lot of thought to put into if we really need to change things, then it can't just, the board doesn't just vote and say, oh, there should be more money.
Yeah, and if I could give you guys some feedback on what you do, that can be a big role what you play on, is educating your fellow students about how the budget works, which is such a convoluted, unbelievable, multi-layered behemoth of a program of how dollars actually make it to the classroom, and it goes through 50 politicians' hands and all of the government organizations' hands. But in order to really breed our true leaders, they understand, if you guys continue to educate yourself and understand the issues surrounding the budget and teach them that money just doesn't just come out and grow up trees. Everybody can't get money. We can't have every single program there's a limit to. That, what you guys, the work you did over the summer, and I know you spent a lot of time doing that and bringing these students up to date, well, what an incredibly beneficial thing that is. And it teaches so many great lessons, and great lessons for you guys too. Is, you know, we can't provide every service, but I love the feedback, and that's not surprising because we're kind of over too.
Yeah, and I actually want to thank Miss Betts because she had us be interns over the summer. So we got to work with some of the charts and the like hundreds or tens of thousands of accounts of payroll, which was crazy. So that was especially seeing how complicated it was. Like,
They
not
were
only-
doing pivot tables, they did a great job.
That does not surprise me. You guys did it. That's great.
So yeah, doing the internship events, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but you mentioned doing something more with it, so in the future, I'm sure Ms. Betts will be working with it, and we can work with her to help bring more students into that and make it like a really fun program to really disseminate the information correctly.
You guys are true leaders. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Carson? Just wanted to let the board know that we do have a board policy that relates to this community service, and in accordance with the recommendations of our students and the board's vote tonight, we can bring those back to the board. So it will be exactly what it is that was recommended in your vote. So there is just some minor adjustments that will be made to it's IKF-R-3 if you're scoring at home.
Okay. Are you saying it's okay that we do this?
It's perfectly fine that you do this.
Okay.
We'll bring the policy back formally and can highlight it again.
All right, good. All right, we had a motion and a second. So let's see, the motion was by Director Richardson, second was by Director Williams. So we'll go ahead and take a roll call vote. Benevento?
Aye.
Carson, aye. Larson?
Aye.
Mendoza?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Silverthorne?
Aye.
Williams? All right, it carries 7-0.
Thank
Good
you very
work.
much.
Great job.
Superintendent Fagan, if it's all right, I know you're up next, but I have, if it's okay with the board, I have to leave early this evening, and I'm going to turn the meeting over to Vice President Larson, but I would like to amend the agenda to move item 26 up to discussion and vote right now, because I think it's important that the entire board speak on item 26, which is the resolution on the education finance bill and related matters, which is it set 26 or 27? Has the governor signed this yet?
No, he's not.
It's passed both houses?
It's passed both houses, and it's awaiting governor's action.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll be able to persuade him. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Director Mendoza has a resolution, and also I think Director Larson has some research that he's conducted on the bill that he'll want to share with the board.
Thank you, Director Carson. We have a resolution on SB 13-213. We have the excellent two-page document. I can read the whole thing or just the highlights?
Yeah, just whatever you think would be the high points.
Okay, I'll read through it. It's excellent and goes through various important points and why we feel strongly about this resolution in opposition to SB 13-213. Whereas a bill has been introduced in the Colorado Senate, SB 213, intended to create a new and improved School Finance Act, the stated purpose of which include addressing the constitutional mandate for a thorough and uniform system of public education, and addressing the significant inequities in the tax burden borne by communities throughout the state as a result of current constitutional and statutory provisions. And whereas SB 213 calls for additional revenues of $1.05 billion conditional upon passage of a statewide ballot measure to increase state revenues for funding public education. And whereas the Board of Education concurs in the view of SB 213 proponents that the current funding system for education in this state has resulted in needless bureaucratic complexity, overly centralized decision-making, arbitrary regulations, as well as market inequities among school districts, including the Douglas County School District, which remains the lowest funded school district in the Denver metro area and among the lowest in the state. And whereas despite the fact that the Board of Education agrees with the premise of reforming the antiquated School Finance Act regime and the financial inequities it produces, SB 213 fails adequately to resolve those inequities and actually worsens them. And whereas the Board of Education favors a funding system in which appropriate dollars follow individual students based on their needs, i.e. special education, free and reduced lunch, English language learners. SB 213, however, does not do this. Instead, it uses a complex allocation formula to fund at-risk students in some favored districts more than at-risk students in disfavored districts. And in the case of at-risk students who receive their education online, it provides them with no additional resources at all. Rather than having funding truly and completely follow the at-risk student, regardless of the district in which that student is resident, and regardless of the school he or she attends, SB 213 follows the politics. It rewards some districts more than others on arbitrary and capricious grounds designed to achieve a desired and predetermined result. And whereas, while the Board of Education recognizes that there are additional costs associated with educating students with unique needs, the weighting of at-risk student funding in SB 213 makes no effort to base the weighting formula on any serious research, study, analysis or empirical data concerning the actual incremental increased cost of educating at-risk gifted English language learners or special education students. Indeed, SB 213 reflects no research, study, analysis, or empirical data concerning even what baseline funding is needed to educate Colorado students in the general population. And whereas SB 213 provides $100 million in additional funds to an innovation grant fund with no identified plan for spending those funds, and for which many districts only qualify on a limited basis because they are not in an accredited category of improvement, priority improvement or turnaround, regardless of their relative per pupil funding for the quality of the innovation idea they may have, and creates another $5 million bureaucracy needed to administer the program. Whereas, well, thank you. SB 213 provides a floor funding level for all school districts. It does so far too little to narrow the broad funding gaps and discrepancies among school districts or to revise small district and cost of living factors. Indeed, the bill merely further redistributes tax revenue among districts without regard to the actual cost of educating students in any district. And whereas SB 213 purports to provide funding to districts for full-day kindergarten and early childhood education, but SB 213 does so without any attention to the actual capital and operating costs of providing such services, and at the expense of adequate funding for the K-12 students the state and districts are already constitutionally obligated to serve. And whereas SB 213 provides for return on investment analysis, it does not require or describe a plan for spending the additional hundreds of millions of dollars in at-risk and innovation funds, does not clearly identify any outcome expected from the significant increased funding that will go to a handful of school districts with certain demographic profiles, and does not describe any measure of accountability to those districts for achieving improved outcomes for their students. Without these accountabilities, school districts will merely use their additional funds to provide more of what they are currently doing for students without any assurance that the additional resource will provide improved academic results or that desperately needed innovations will even occur. Whereas SB 213 is contingent on a voter-approved income tax increase of $1.05 billion in the midst of an anemic macroeconomic recovery now underway, the bill's so-called floor, the taxpayers of Douglas County would pay an estimated $90 to $100 million in increased income taxes, but receive only $45 to $50 million, an estimated $47 million for the students of Douglas County, thus aggravating the already inequitable funding Douglas County students receive, and thus magnify the redistributionist qualities of the already untenable approach to financing public education in Colorado. Whereas weighing all of these serious shortcomings in SB 213 and mindful that $1.05 billion tax increase will have a deleterious effect on macroeconomic growth, job creation, business formation, aggregate investment in Colorado's interstate competitiveness, factors which are the key drivers of financial resources available to the K-12 system generally, and to the Douglas County School District in particular, it's evident that the impact of SB 213 would be decidedly and unambiguously negative. And whereas SB 213 has passed both houses of the General Assembly and is awaiting action by the governor. Now, therefore, it's resolved that the Board of Education strongly opposes SB 13-213 as profoundly contrary to the best interests of the students of Douglas County and profoundly contrary to the best interests of the taxpayers of Douglas County. So approved on this date.
thank you for the presentation of the resolution, and so we'll open it up to discussion. Actually, before we do that, we should probably formally vote to move item 26 on the agenda to appear right after item 9. I'll make that motion. Motion by Carson, seconded by Larson. Benevento? Aye. Carson, aye. Larson?
Aye.
Mendoza?
Aye.
Richardson? Aye. Silverthorne? Aye. Williams? All right, now we'll have discussion on the resolution. Director Larson, you have, I know, put a lot of, you followed this all the way through the process over the last several months, and you are an actuary, and obviously have been very helpful to the rest of the board and the leadership of the school district in explaining the flaws of this legislation. And so if you want to give us some of the high points there, certainly you have persuaded me. If you just look at the return to Douglas County, it's, I mean, to put it in the most simple terms, for every additional dollar of taxes the residents of this county would pay, or the taxpayers of this county would pay, we would get back maybe 50 cents. That is a pretty amazing statement about redistributing dollars, which, you know, in my view, you're funding public education at a greater level in this state. I don't understand how you can say certain school districts should get much higher per pupil allocations than other school districts. I think our students are just as worthy of the additional funding as any other students in this state. So that's the main concern I have with it. Let me turn it over to you.
Thank you, President Carson. Yes, as this first came into play, it really has been in the works for a couple of years with a number of groups working with Senator Johnson, who is the lead sponsor on the legislation, and a number of groups that were involved. But what was alarmingly lacking was involvement from enough school districts around the state, including ours, both at the administrative and CFO level and from boards, to get any of our input to be part of that. I look at this legislation like it's really a bad hair job. It has a lot of highlights, but if you look at the roots, there's a lot of gray showing. And because there's a lot of things that sound really good. Looking at the attendance count to do it on a more frequent basis, approaching some kind of a continuous basis. But actually, in reality, they're going to spend more to try to track that. And then when they actually do it, they're actually going to base it on a complete prior year's numbers of calculations. So there's going to even be a bigger lag in terms of the funding matching the counts that they're keeping track of. There's a big shift toward very narrow definitions of what at risk is. It's based on two factors: free and reduced lunch, English language learning. And while those two factors, I think, probably have a high degree of correlation with intervention needs, it completely doesn't count those kids who do require intervention above the baseline level of funding, but because if they don't fall into those categories. It also, that kind of funding doesn't follow the child, because there are certain thresholds once you reach as a district to get additional funding for these efforts. And because of that, you could actually look at what we do in Douglas County. We have Hope Online, dispersed throughout the state, but largely in areas such as Denver, where in fact their federal funding that follows that program actually is based on residency. So it stays in their district of residence, yet the district that's helping provide them the education is not receiving that federal funding, and because they're online kids, they don't qualify for this at-risk funding. I find that puzzling. I attended a number of the hearings at the Capitol where this was in committee, when it went to the floor, where a number of amendments were proposed. There were attempts by a number of people on different sides of the aisle to make it through. But really what happened is, in spite of there being a 2-year buildup to this process, there was March 7th, the curtain was pulled and now it was open, and finally everybody had a chance to, in a very hurried manner, try to weigh in and get something through that was really destined to just go through in a very unipartisan fashion. I'm disappointed by that. We did have the senator out to this county to discuss it. We relayed a lot of our concerns about the equity and fairness. I think points that were reluctantly swallowed and accepted by him, but I think we tried to show some other angles on how that would look. But I really don't feel like our voice was heard and we were given much credence, and I think that it would be much better for this legislature to give it a much more thoughtful look. It's now been given a 5-year sunset to have the state attempt to fund the $1 billion tax proposal. In a way, we've already talked about $100 million, 90 to 100 million out, 45 to 50 million back in. And while I like to be good citizens of the state, that's a little bit too tilted. And what really alarms me, all of that said, and all of the other things that you can pick apart in this legislation, what really alarms me is that it really threatens and inhibits our local community from stepping in and looking down the road when, in a few years we might be retiring debt and might have some capacity to go to our citizens to look at some measures that we can do within the means of our taxation levels already. May not even have to raise taxes. But if this goes through and drains their resources, it threatens the ability to participate in a measure where 100% of the money would stay here in Douglas County. And so, for those reasons, I emphatically concur with the resolution that we should.
Can I ask you a couple of questions?
Certainly.
You made the point about Hope Online, and Hope Online is a tremendous program that is a charter in this school district, which obviously has many economically disadvantaged students in it. So you made the point that those students are not going to get the additional funding for disadvantaged kids, correct?
No, if you're online, there's a flat amount of funding for an online student. So regardless of whether they would qualify for definitions of at-risk funding, if you're online, that trumps it if you're online.
Okay. So what about other economically disadvantaged students in Douglas County? Are they treated equally in terms of the additional funding as an economically disadvantaged student in another school district?
To some extent, there's a certain component that's based on if you qualify for the at-risk funding, there's a factor that multiplies. And in fact, it doubles up if you're both free and reduced and your English language learning, then those both kick in. But there's also certain thresholds that once a district hits them, it kicks in another accelerator factor that we would never come near. And so that means our kids at risk, the dollars that would come in under this definition at risk would be not as high here in Douglas County as they would in another county or another district where they've hit that threshold.
So in other words, a district has to reach a certain percentage threshold of the most economically disadvantaged students. For those students that get the highest level of additional funding, we will never, or at least in
Not the
foreseeable future, reach that. So even the economically disadvantaged students in our district who have meet the same criteria as an economically disadvantaged student in any other district is going to get less per pupil funding for that student?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I don't want us to just, obviously, if we've got people with economic disadvantages, that could translate into them having learning needs that they don't have the support structure that they have at home, or access to resources that are going to get them prepared entering school to have the best learning opportunities. But it's absent any measure of, if we've got kids who even are in not an economic disadvantage situation, or a kid who's a native English speaker but has other disabilities or learning that needs intervention, those needs aren't being addressed in this bill. So again, it's absent a measure, an objective measure of what's the baseline amount of money needed for a student who would require no interventions, and then look at those interventions that are required, whether it's reading specialists, whether it's an IEP, whether it's a 504, whether it's all the different special education definitions, and measure those, and then have that truly follow the kid based on what those needs have been identified. I'm not seeing that here, and that was the kind of state reform of financing I had hoped to see, and I'm not finding it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key point you make, is that if you're gonna fund additional dollars to economically disadvantaged students, that's a worthy objective, but it's just bizarre to me that we're saying essentially a student in this school district who might meet those same economic criteria doesn't get the same level of funding. I mean, that's just outrageous. I mean, that to me is a glaring flaw in this legislation that I frankly have yet to hear any logical explanation.
And on top of it, what happens is, okay, so if you don't have enough kids meeting those definitions that would trigger the advantage factors in the funding. But there's also been a look to say, okay, what's the median income in the district in which, or where that school district is located? And so that's being used to equalize or change the money too. So even if you have the same makeup of students in terms of numbers of at risk, but you're in a district that has a higher income level than another one, the state determines that the funding is going to change.
Sort of a countywide means test or district-wide means test?
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah. Well, and we have, we may not have the same numbers of economically disadvantaged that other districts have, but we have many thousands of economically disadvantaged students in this school district. It's not by any means an insignificant number, and it's growing. And so I think it's tremendously unfair for them.
Director Richardson, picking up on that point, I think you said at our last meeting, I think paraphrasing George Orwell, some students are more equal than other students. And some special needs students are apparently, in the eyes of proponents of this bill, more equal than other students. 150 years ago, nearly, our framers considered the question, where should we locate the question of governing school districts, and where should we locate, I think, included in that, the notion of managing school districts. And it's assumed that as the question of finance, and they made a very conscious decision. They considered a centralized approach, and they said, no, we want school districts to be closer to the people. And I think this is just more of the same recent phenomenon of centralizing the financing of education. It's going in the wrong direction. And unlike this school district, which has had remarkable results with fewer dollars, the K-12 system writ large in the United States and generally in Colorado has had unremarkable results. Since 1970, we've spent 200% more, inflation adjusted, on K-12 education, and test scores are flat. That's a remarkable fact. And so spending additional money without changing things should not cause us to believe that anything new and different will happen. We'll just continue to spend more money and continue to see flat test scores in a system that needs some changes. Now, those changes are happening here and have been happening here for some time, and we're doing remarkable things with fewer resources, but it raises the question, what's it going to take to understand how long, how many more years do we have to, does it require us to learn that just throwing more money at the same system isn't going to produce improved results? I'm also struck by the utter lack of empirical, serious science and study and evaluation put into this bill to look at what is it, what's the baseline dollar cost that we truly need to educate a child in 2013 in Colorado? And then what's the science behind the incremental amount, which I think we all concede we need to spend for at-risk students, whether economically disadvantaged or English language learners or other categories that need unique help, and then treating all students equally in response to that additional need. This bill does none of those things. It's largely a political exercise that rewards favored districts. I'm also struck by the magnitude of the tax increase. It's heavy on taxes, $1.05 billion in additional taxes being imposed on the people of Colorado. And it's light on changes. It's light on reform. It's light on transformation. I have a record of voting for additional resources for this district when I believe those resources are going to produce better results, when I believe that those resources are going to fund a new way of compensating teachers that rewards their excellence and champions them and increases how much teachers make in our culture and values them more. That uses resources to build schools to accommodate our growth. That uses resources to provide choices for parents. I'm in favor of more resources as long as it's dedicated to the kinds of changes that I think even Senator Johnston agrees we need to make. And yet it's very light on that aspect. It's heavy on taxes, light on change. I think I read somewhere a significant percentage of this $1 billion tax increase will simply go to fund para. Will simply just go right into the retirement system and won't even get to the classroom to deal with para's underfunding relative to its promises. Why do we think that's going to change the academic achievement of a child? I don't get that. So I'm strongly opposed to this bill. I'm strongly in support of this resolution. And I hope that the voters in Colorado will get a lot of information between now and November and realize that this is not the right approach and the right direction for our state.
Director Benevento. I'm particularly struck by the funding mechanism that they've come up with. It reminds me of the story of the businessman who admitted that while he was going to lose money on each transaction, he was going to make it up in volume. And that's basically what they're asking Douglas County taxpayers is, hey, you're going to lose money for funding for your kid, but don't worry, we'll give it to you, make it up in volume on the back end. The bill is patently unfair to, I think, the majority of the state. It's a demonstration of political power and a demonstration of educational policy. And it also is, there is no reform. I thought Craig was light, or excuse me, was kind with the word light. I was always under the impression from folks at the Capitol who were involved with education that they would have reform and then they would go seek a tax increase. They left out the reform part. And frankly, the drafting of the bill was not done in a manner that I think at all leads any confidence that it was anything other than a political exercise. There were closed meetings. There were meetings where the majority of the representatives in Douglas County, or all the representatives in Douglas County in the state, weren't invited to. It was drafted for a single purpose, and it was to redistribute wealth from places like Douglas County to more politically favorable places. And I think that we'll have to spend time talking to our voters about it this fall.
Well, not only is the reform light, but there doesn't seem to be any accountability built into this. I mean, is there anything in there, Director Larson, that holds the system accountable for how these additional dollars are going to be spent, or are we just plugging more money into favored districts and we'll see what we get, I guess.
Well, there is plans to take a look. This would be implemented in 2016, and after the 4 years, there would be a study on the return on investment. As I've said before, it's long on 2020 hindsight, literally. That will be the year of the first return on investment, and short on 2013 foresight. So that they're not defining what is the measure, they're just gonna get there and measure it afterwards and determine, I think more generically, if these things, and the committees that these will be appointed committees, I'm not, it's very ambiguous as far as who discerns whether it's been effective. So there's just a lot that's unclear to the way it's defined here.
Is there anybody that'd like to speak in favor of the bill?
I love the bill, no one can. I'm sorry if I missed this, but remember when if you discussed this, my apologies. Remember Prop 103, that was a big monstrous tax increase that failed. One of the surprising things I think that the average voter would look at is that it was the face of children, but it turned out that you could use that money, could have just put it in general fund and use it for anything. Is Senator Johnson, are there any aspects of this major tax increase that can be used for other things, or is it all directly earmarked for education?
There are components, well, actually this bill itself doesn't even address the specifics of raising the revenue. That's why at the moment there's a dozen or 2 dozen potential tax revenue bills that are being considered for title. And if you look at the variations, not only do they vary by whether it will be a flat increase to tax rate, but perhaps anywhere from 2 to 5 different tiers of a graduated structure. There's also iterations that look at creating a special fund, mandating 43% of the state budget be on K-12 education, some other things, and I have a feeling that the proponents for those measures are polling to see which combination or components of that would be given the best chance for success. So at the moment, there's a wide variety, but there are inclusive of some that do not specify, and the money at the state budget level will be fungible unless there's very specific restrictions and controls on that. We don't know at this point whether there will be a guarantee that that money will go where the voters that might support it would intend it.
So I know I'm going to be cynical when I make this comment, but when you have a potential for a tax increase using dollars that are fungible and can be used for many things, and there are a lot of people that would love to get their hands in the cookie jar there, it becomes a real issue, something that I'll probably strongly oppose.
And again, I think what this does at the state level, and again, we've done a 30-year trend toward depending more on the state for funding than we do local. I'd like us to try to return back to the balance we had back in 1982. That would take a lot of really creative and collaborative effort but I think worthwhile effort to get back to that kind of a structure where the local communities can have a better say. And again, as Director Richardson said, I wasn't here for the opportunities in the past to vote on revenue measures. I'm much more, but I was on record as being in favor of that one. But even so, I think locally, we're actually now positioned in a better place. That as I said earlier, as down the road, some of the debt that we have paid off comes off the books. We have capacity to possibly look at funding within our district that doesn't require a tax rate increase at all, or mitigate a decrease that would come up. I think we have much more favorable proposals to present down the road to our community. But this actually threatens that viability, because if people are already getting $1 out and 50 cents back in, they won't have, even if they think we've got a better plan, they won't have the capacity for it if this is usurped some of their resources.
If you're retiring debt, that will provide us an increased form of revenue where we're able to pay that off and use that revenue to stay here, that is a true definition of being physically responsible.
And on your point about fungibility, I think it's a very important point. I mean, even if you assumed, and we shouldn't because it doesn't, that this bill earmarked all $1.05 billion in incremental revenues for the K-12 education system, nothing stops the General Assembly and the governor from reducing the spending out of the general fund to compensate for this additional spending. And we may find over time as there are more hands in the cookie jar, as there are more stakeholders that want resources. But we're right back where we are now with an even more inequitable funding system, which aggravates and magnifies the disparities between districts that we already have. So there's nothing that guarantees that actual spending, sustained spending on K-12 will be increased by 1.05 billion, because they can back it out of the general fund, which is where they're spending the money now, and compensate for these additional resources. And that's even assuming they were earmarked for the K-12 and they're not.
And the 2020 is nothing but a promise. I mean, you come in 2020, then it's all about how do you assess the students. And then what happens if it's a failure? What are they going to do? Roll that back and rechange it? No way. There's just no way.
There are some practical limits on fundability. At least there is Amendment 23, but that's already been shown to be circumvented with negative factors. Now, this bill does say there will be no negative factor. Well, who's to say that 2 years from now, when they need the money, they won't create a new negative factor? So, I guess my own experience has made me skeptical about the absence of future negative factors.
Will we pretty much party line in both houses for this?
This bill went straight. That's why I call it even a part of it. It was strictly, it went completely straight part of it.
All right, well, any other discussion? If not, Director Mendoza, you want to make the motion since it's your, you authored the resolution?
Motion to approve the resolution.
Motion by Mendoza, second by Larson. Benevento? Aye. Carson, aye. Larson? Aye. Mendoza?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Silverthorne?
Aye.
Williams? Aye. All right, well, that's 7 to 0 vote against this legislation, and I certainly plan to be very active through the fall election in educating the voters of our county on a abominable piece of legislation. All right, with that, we'll go, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Vice President Larson and resume the agenda.
We're still in the superintendent report, so let's, I lost track of my numbers. Where are we now?
9.
Okay, we just finished number 9, so let's move on to agenda 10.
Yes, so we moved the one item up from the bottom. We're just starting the superintendent's report, so no, we're good. I would like to start with an update on a project we affectionately call Big Data because we have been unable to name it better. And so we hope that after this opportunity, one of you comes out with an outstanding name, including you, Sophie and Kiana. You guys are included in this. This is a district-wide initiative to try to name this project. As you all know, we have worked very hard over the last couple of years with our teachers to rethink some of our curriculum outcomes, to rethink some of our assessments. We have Senate Bill 191 to implement in the fall, which is part of our site teacher evaluation, our lead administrator evaluation. And as we've gone through this process together, one thing has been really clear is that education has been extraordinarily slow to automate, that education is one of the few professions where people genuinely do not have 21st century tools that make perfect sense for the work that they want to do. You can buy pieces and parts and they're not exactly what we have in mind, and sometimes they don't work together. We tried hard to find the tools that we needed, and eventually we got to a space where we realized that we needed to come together as a district team and work with teachers to put together and build a system that will literally support and automate the work of our teachers, our leaders, automate more things for our students, and ultimately parents also. And so this is a very big project that we start with on a timeline dictated a bit by Senate Bill 191. So we start with the needs of our teachers and leaders first, and then we will roll forward into other phases as time goes on. So tonight we'd like to bring the board a short update on where we are with our big data project. And I'd like to, we all on the cabinet work on lots of different projects and collaborate together. And so part of the collaboration team on this particular project includes Rob Ross, legal counsel for the district, as well as Dwight Humphrey, executive director of IT. And so tonight, Rob's going to introduce the team that will kind of give you a brief update on where we are in this project and what it looks like today.
Thank you. As Dr. Fagan says, this is a big team effort, and it includes a collaboration of our IT department and community business. And I'm very pleased to introduce our community business partner in this. And I'd like Mark Crawford to step up. And he has with him, I see him back there, Sandy Hayworth and Gretchen Kiefer, who's also here. I don't know if they're going to be coming up to present, but we're all available for questions. So take it away, Mark. Thank you.
I think they're going to stay down there, back there. So. Well, thank you all for having us here today. Really appreciate it. We'll stay as brief as we can and giving you an update on this very, very exciting project. We're very excited to be a part of it. I was kind of kidding, but our company, there's employees jockeying for a position to be on this project. So they're that excited about it. We're excited to be a part of it. I'm not going to spend too much time. I'd like to give you a quick overview of who we are, talk about the project, give you an update on that, and spend time going over one of our first deliverables, which is the dashboard, which is going to be that kind of the main hub for all of the information that the different stakeholders will access, and then we'll have time for question and answer. I was going to add a 4th point here to offer an internship or a job to the 2 girls that came up first, because I was so impressed. I can't believe they're only juniors. That's very impressive, so great job. The company is based in Denver, so we're just right down the street in Centennial, or up the street. We kind of got our background doing content management systems, learning management systems, so a lot of custom applications that we build. We have offices across the country, and we're used to kind of working with a lot of different types of clients, so we can leverage a lot of the experience we have. We work in the K-12 industry, but we also work a lot in healthcare and finance as well. So we can bring a lot of those best practices into what we're doing here with this project.
If I could just add that this is the group that also brought you our mobile app, so I know it's been very popular.
Yeah, that's great. So just a quick update. We've been on the project here for about a couple of months. We have had a lot of meetings with different stakeholders in the district. In the district, I'm sorry, several meetings. So we're really gathering as much information as we can, and then putting it together in some kind of a technology platform. We are working as a collaborative effort with the IT department here, so we're really excited about that. They've been helpful in providing us information, and I think we're on a good path here moving forward. The immediate need for this project is to consolidate a lot of different technology systems that are out there. A lot of when we talk to a lot of different teachers and principals, they go to all these different systems to check this or to build the student information system, whatever it is. We're trying to consolidate that into one kind of hub. That's this dashboard. We have a very aggressive timeline, as Dr. Fagan mentioned. So we're looking at a release here in July, and we're building this, what they call it, to be multi-tenancy, so we'll be able to be packaged and sold to other districts. And I think that's very important for us, is to always keep that in mind with whatever it is we're building. Teacher feedback is going to be so important for this, and focus groups. We're going to get teachers involved from the onset, so we've already started doing that. We met with the teacher advisory group already. We are setting up focus groups with different stakeholders. We're getting their feedback along the way. And so what we're trying to do is identify a day in the life of a teacher, a day in the life of a principal, and making sure that what we're building is bringing value. And so it's actually making their day easier, and they're having a say along the way and the way that the application should be structured.
I just wanted to add that the teachers from the advisory affectionately named themselves that jumped on to participate from the get-go crash test dummies. So they have literally, that's what they named themselves, the group that is going to work directly with Ed Measures through all of the development, which is the most challenging time because it can be very frustrating and whatever. So anyway, we have quite a long list of crash test dummies.
Yeah.
Yes.
The list keeps growing, so
yeah.
It's exciting. You get the momentum there early on. This is a draft, so this has already changed, I think, 7 or 8 times, and it keeps getting better. And what we're, when you look at this right away, there's a lot of information on here. We want to make it very user-friendly. We want the teachers to be excited, or the principals, or any of the stakeholders to be excited to come to this first thing in the morning. What you see across the top is a lot of integration with existing systems. So you can submit your lunch menus, or your lunch amounts. You can look at grade books. You can record your attendance. We have all of the different links to your HR, your benefits, world-class education targets. We also want this to be a hub to be able to connect with other teachers. So we have here, and it's a message feature, a blog, communicating with other star authors, what we call them. I'll talk a little bit about that down at the bottom. And then also we want to consolidate a lot of the calendars. So a lot of these teachers have multiple calendars. We want to bring all of those together kind of under one roof. Also be able to shoot information, whether it's community relations information, school news, be able to send that through, send messages as well. Along the right-hand side, we have the balanced assessment system that we're working with Dr. Morgan incorporating into this. Being able to access that through this one dashboard. We're working with Pat and his team on the personal development side and really customizing or really honing in on the individual needs of the teacher or principal and making PD opportunities more targeted to them. We have a sort of Dougie character here, which I'll talk about in a moment, but we're just trying to make it more friendly. So we're creating this character along the way that can provide advice or to say, have you thought about this? And here's a unique opportunity. In the center here is, a very important part too. We have your backwards planning. I won't go into too much detail about this, but the 3 stages of that. Part of this is going to my lessons and creating a unit builder. Be able to bring in world-class outcomes, bringing in different assessments and creating all the instruction around that. We have our site performance here, so you have your site status in the center of the page. And then along the bottom are my gold stars, and if given the opportunity, we have to come back and talk about these things in more detail. But it's really creating that kind of gold standard. Along the bottom, we have, we're trying to carry over similar branding across all the applications, so we brought along the similar functionality that you see in the mobile app. All of that can be accessible to the bottom of this. We're also fortunate enough to be working on the website, so we're bringing some continuity across all the different applications. So it's very exciting to have all of them speak to one another and make it easier for all the stakeholders involved. Any questions on this right now? I know it's a lot, so it's hopefully in this first go that it makes a little sense. We I'll talk about that in a second, but to kind of get more into the little Dougie thing here, it's kind of end with something fun. But this is a character that we really want to develop with the district. These are probably the worst examples you can see across the bottom. This one reminds me of the Microsoft little paperclip that pops up. It's so annoying. But you probably don't get that one. But so we're calling it an edgy tar, and we're having fun with this and really making this a big part of it, making it fun for all the stakeholders. So that's a very quick update. Any questions from anyone?
Or they may be applying for that intern.
Yeah, I guess I'll do back to that. Okay.
I can highly recommend. I just have a question about, so is the user interface sort of like do you remember iGoogle?
Yes.
So is it sort of like iGoogle where you pick and choose, or is it more like you have set things that are already on there and you get to add things, or is it all set, or how would that work? Would you be able to move it around?
Yes, we so the earlier phases we won't have that functionality, but we want it to where the user can customize that. So we're actually going to have it to where you can go as far as putting in different headers across the banners across the top. So if you don't like the mountains we have here, so you really just start to move things around and customize it to what features you would like in there, what components of the system. So if you're not using, the system is different too for the stakeholders. So what we're seeing here is a teacher dashboard. So it'll be different for a principal. We're going to do it for parents as well. So what they're seeing is going to be a little bit different, but you can start to take away things, add certain, and move things that are priorities up to the top. So that's the kind of the vision with all of that.
So we were wondering, there's a lot of the teacher websites and things, like I believe we have Moodle, and then last year we had School Center, and we had some of the other just like general websites. So how are you connecting that to this at all, or are you helping with all of those? Okay.
Yes, that's a great question. We're working with Dwight and his team to integrate with any existing systems, so Moodle being one of them, and some of the student information systems, another one that we're integrating with. The goal really is to kind of, if there's certain systems that need to be rebuilt for whatever reason, or we need to make any kind of enhancements on top of that, we can do that as well. So we're evaluating all of them. There's so many different applications right now, but we're trying to make it as seamless as possible for the user, so you're not having to log in and out of all the different systems.
Okay, great.
One of the things that I'm struck about again on this project is the efficiency and cost efficiency in particular with which this has been carried out relative to a equivalent effort on the part of the Colorado Department of Education. Can you explain the current spend on this compared to what we understand is the multi-million-dollar spending that the CDE has done so far on a similar effort?
Well, we're actually not complete in our process, but I think you're referencing the $24 million annual cost of park. And the piece of this that is sort of relevant to that is the balanced assessment system, where we can do interim assessments for our students. I think Sina says that the cost is like $1 something per student, as opposed to the $24 million park price tag. And so out of the gate, we had a Mortgage Family Foundation grant of about $500,000, which got us really far down the road. And so in comparison, I mean, obviously we're not educating all the students in Colorado, but a similar effort in trying to develop a 21st century assessment or assessments and banks of assessments and items that teachers can choose and select from. So the goal of this system is not to tell people what, but to provide tools that allow teachers to customize and to maximize talent and to share great work among teachers and really social networks, so that, you know, if you have an amazing teacher in a school in Highlands Ranch and a teacher in Parker who's teaching that exact same thing, they can collaborate on a unit and actually earn sort of the stars, and which would populate then standard 5 on professional growth and leadership. When teachers, you know, develop quality units and share them with others, they are actually teacher leaders that we want to celebrate that and make sure that the system captures some of the great things they do. Right now what happens is a lot of teachers are either doing electronic portfolios on their own, or they're doing paper portfolios, which they've had to do paper portfolios for a long time, ever since Douglas County ventured into pay for performance, and with master teacher portfolios. So we're trying to capture real time the incredible things our teachers are doing, so that they don't have to spend time stuffing portfolios, and then making it really easy for principals who are evaluators to look at material and to look at things that teachers tag and decide to submit into the system, and just having so much empowerment, discretion for all these different folks as they work together. The site dashboard is real time. If a principal comes in, they observe something, they use their iPad app, which is part of this, to collect data about various standards. I saw this. That automatically is populated. The teacher can actually see those items come in, and the site standards, you know, turn more green as more data is captured for them. So the teacher advisory was just 1,000% excited, and you know, they were naming it things like my personal assistant, and you know, they jokingly said these are the things that they have needed and wanted for a long time, just never thought were possible. So I do think we've been very, you know, we've worked really hard to keep costs low, raise funds, work collaboratively with partners, create something that other districts can have if they want it, and could possibly be a benefit to Douglas County in the long run. And I think that as I've talked with other superintendents, they love the idea and are really excited to see the first version of it be done in July and sort of test run in their districts. So.
Well, I would just say I think you're being very modest, because in the meetings I've had with some of the senior leaders of the state, they have been amazed at what we've done with so few dollars compared to the massive number of dollars that CDE has spent on I understand that their scale is for statewide, but the fixed costs really shouldn't be that different. The variable costs may be different, but not the fixed costs. And so 500,000-ish versus 24 million is a remarkable difference. I think it illustrates, frankly, some of the comments made in the previous agenda item, which is local school districts can be entrepreneurial and can use limited resources to achieve amazing things. But when you throw money at a centralized system, it tends to just disappear. And so $24 million, and I'm not sure they are on their way to producing anything as elegant and as powerful as this platform, and I think that's worth mentioning. But congratulations.
If I could add to that, Mr. Larson, if I could add to that.
Yes.
You mentioned the efficiency and also the we talked about the multi-tenancy, being able to possibly sell this to other districts. That's one of the reasons I'm involved in this. We want to make sure that we protect the unique intellectual property that's being developed by our IT team and in partnership with Ed Measures. And we will, $500,000 for the balanced assessment system versus $24 million by the state. That makes it even worse when, from that comment, that when what we build could be transferred to other districts across the country. So the increase in value of that is exponential. But again, we will be updating you on costs of this for the whole system, not just the balanced assessment system. That'll be coming to you soon.
Director Mendoza.
Thank you. If I missed this, I apologize. In the launch phase 1 in July, is that going to be system-wide for all the teachers, or is it just the small initial group of teachers?
We're still working with Pat on that, and we were going to work closely with his team on that rollout schedule and training schedule. So, we would like it to be district-wide, but I don't want to speak for the we'll talk about that, but that's a consideration.
The intention is, and I feel comfortable saying this for Pat, that Pat is setting up a train-the-trainer experience so that every school will have trainers, so that every teacher who's interested, I've had teachers say, well, I kind of like my paper stuff, is that okay? Yeah, it's fine. So for every teacher who's interested, then they would have an opportunity in their building. And for every building that chooses to have this sort of, I can't remember the name tags, it's too complicated, but there's an educational technology liaison, and buildings can choose to have that person in their school, and that person will be an expert in this too. So really trying to create a scaffolding of support. We've even talked about, how you go online and you're on a site and it says, you have a question, ask here, or there's a live chat. So we've even talked about how we can infuse a live chat in here, so a teacher doesn't have to, search down this one person or go to this training, but if they just have a simple question, they could just hit the live chat, and somebody who is assigned to that for that time period would answer the question in real time. So really trying to think about the features of modern technology that we all love and enjoy, that we haven't experienced in education, and supporting people with those sort of automations. Not to give Mark a heart attack. and I think it's important to say too that obviously we're phasing this, so the core components will be the July launch, and then there's another set of components that come on in like September, October, that time frame, that will, the timeline works okay to do it that way. So we've really paid attention to what has to go first, what are those critical things, and then what can we phase in. And because of Senate Bill 191, the teacher components and then the principal components are the first pieces that go.
Well, I think that's excellent, Liz, just speaking from working in a hospital where they're changing computer systems all the time, and there's large rollouts in various phases, that it's very smart to do it that way, and the technical support is critical. So if it goes down and there's some problem, people have a way to access it. So it sounds like you guys have done a great job.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm intrigued by what you referenced earlier. The teacher advisory group has been enthusiastic. I guess, and maybe it's because of this, I want to find out. With changes in the evaluation system and a lot of documentation that people are trying to have, it seems this then is a platform that enhances that ability to do. So while some of the feedback that we may have heard is that, well, I have to keep track of this, it's difficult to do. If we do a phase 1 in July and get people on, you know, depending on how excited and if it takes off, and then two, how we can truly just keep up with implementing the phase and getting it. Do we know what kind of time to full district-wide, what's the likely timeline for that?
Well, it depends on what you're talking about, but if you're talking about the core functionality for teachers where if I create a quality unit, it automatically populates site standard 1, 2, 3, that is where that October timeline is. That September-October timeline is when we hope to have the full automation of the site piece. So teachers can certainly select to continue with paper or e-portfolios that are sort of like, you still have to drag and drop it all in, or they can go in this direction where they put their unit in here, and when the system says, oh, this is a quality unit, it automatically sends it right into site and tags it according to the right elements. And the other thing is teachers have the opportunity to select things and tag them and submit them, and principals in a room would have an app, and they would be able to take pictures, take videos, say, you know, take notes, this is what I saw, tag it, and it goes right in. So it automates a lot of what we're doing on paper right now. And, you know, that's one of the biggest frustrations, I think, when I've had to do this, where you have to collect all this data, and you have to create these portfolios, and you feel like you're scrapbooking. And it takes a lot of time and energy, and then you write reflections and you do all this stuff, and it doesn't make sense in the 21st century that we have to do that. I mean, there's so much of what we do in education. You know, I remember filling in the little lesson plan blocks in my red book. Kevin, you probably had one of those. And then you had a little carbon paper, and you know, ripped it out and handed it in, this kind of thing. I mean, those are really dated approaches. And now today maybe we use Word docs or Google Docs and these kind of things, but this is really taking it to the next level. And if a teacher builds an amazing unit and they give permission for that unit to be shared with other teachers, when a teacher selects the outcomes, the same outcomes, we're both kindergarten teachers, I'm going to make this up, it's not going to be a good example, we're both teaching bears, I select bears from the GBC, all of a sudden the system says, hey, you selected bears, here are all the units that are gold star units on bears, you're welcome to take one of these and modify it, or you can completely create your own, but it allows you to then, if you do select one, to then connect with the author and discuss it, and what did you do for this, and just really bring that professionalism to, you know, I remember watching this is maybe not a great example, but where it was like Grey's Anatomy, maybe Dr. Mendoza, and they were sort of texting or tweeting in the, you know, to get a doctor from somewhere else who had done this particular procedure to give information, and it's just a great reminder that we really can maximize talent across the system because of technology. We just haven't yet. And we want to bring as much of that to teachers as they want.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much for that presentation.
Thanks.
Okay. Next we have for you a strategic plan update. So we've been working on a 2-year update of the strategic plan. We have a narrative document that is pretty lengthy, and we're putting the final touches on that document, and it will be out for everyone, and then we'll have a much shorter version for people also. And this is sort of all of the available data that kind of accompanies that 2 years of narrative. So tonight we'd like to give a 2-year update on the strategic plan, and it's going to be a tag team event because there is a lot of data here. We're going to try to move through it pretty quickly and then just answer your questions at the end. So I'm going to go down so that I can start the first section, and then Brian Caesar, Human Resources Officer, and Dan McMenemy, Assistant Superintendent Secondary, will each take a section also. So with that, I'll move down. Okay, again, there will be a long narrative document that people will be able to access if they'd like. It's about 26 pages. Will be longer in the format that will be, and then we'll have a shorter version that I think is about 12 pages, right, Senator? Yes. Okay, so a digested version. But for those people who like to really delve into the details, that will be available. So one thing that is often correlated with education is property values. And so we took this clip out of the Wall Street Journal from this expert who, president of Collateral Analytics, he specializes in real estate data analysis. When housing markets go south, with exceptional schools tend to hold their value better than the market overall. And this was just an expert opinion. But in Douglas County, this actually did prove itself to be true as we've gone over the last few years. As you know, we all experienced a recession where home values plummeted, and home values in Douglas County were the exception over and over. So here are some examples of various pieces of reporting on the home values in Douglas County. This is from the Castle Rock Chamber of Commerce, and it again reiterates that attracting and retaining primary businesses is directly related to the performance of the school district. So property values, businesses locating in our school district. Again, here's Amy Sherman, who's the president of Northwest Douglas County. Again, she's talking about how they feel very privileged to be partners with Douglas County School District because of the quality schools here, which attract businesses and help property values be maintained. Again, Douglas County School District growing faster than most, but as you know, there was a 10-year period when we were growing 400%, and some people find it surprising to learn that even during our slower times during the recession, we were still growing by 1,200 or more students a year. And here was a recent Denver Post piece on the fact that homeowners can expect continued declines in assessed property values, but as you read through it, Douglas County was again the exception, where Douglas County property values were actually up. And it just seems like there is over and over again, from our business partners to our real estate partners to other people, telling us that the quality school district that we have here in this county always has and continues to be something that generates positive property values, positive business development, economic development for the county. And then here is the couple articles on transparency. One thing that this board has really valued since they came in 2009 is transparency. And so we have continued to really work hard to have a very transparent school district. And the Sunshine Review, which reviews lots of government systems, ultimately gave us a grade A- on all of our items. And Cinnamon and Bonnie continue to work with them on the budget one with the hopes that we can bring that, whatever, we just have a minor disagreement about that, but we'll work through it because we'd like to have that A+ rating. That's the only item that is left with any sort of partial.
Family moved back with our 3 kids. We were looking around in Douglas County, really stood out, obviously from the experiences that I had as a student. But you know, the community here in Douglas County and Castle Rock is great, and it was really no-brainer for us to be able to come back here. And I think in the Front Range area, the Denver metro area, the schools here surpass all the others. You know, and there's great quality schools, but also the selection and choice. That's really what was attractive to us. You know, have some variety to pick from, rather than just having to go to a school because it happens to be right around the corner from your house, which we may do because it's a good school, but maybe we want something else because of the program.
So just one of many stakeholders that we get emails from that we happen to bump into for various reasons that tells us over and over again that Douglas County is the school district of their choice. The school district, if they're moving into the state, that they do like to come to our school district. So again, back to that same theme over and over again that we hear from our business partners, our chambers of commerce, that this school district is an economic engine in the county as it attracts businesses. It produces quality workers. It's a place where future workforce people want their children to go to school, and the community values, the property values, were the sort of exception in the Denver Post article, saying that most homeowners can expect to see continued declines, not here. These are our open enrollment applications, and the difference in this particular year is that we didn't open any new schools that year. And so you don't see the bumps that you see in other years of open enrollment applications. And the other thing that we've done is, as part of the Blueprint for Choice, we've added another open enrollment window That information goes directly to our schools, and we haven't automated a way for us to collect that. We will in the future. So this actually only represents, since we've added that additional window, one round of open enrollment applications. So next I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the fiscal improvements over the last 2 years. So this is an interesting graph because it shows that the percentage of dollars that we put in the classroom, and it's an apples-to-apples comparison from 2008 forward. And when you look at this, you might say, well, that looks pretty stable, but the reality is 64.65 is actually the largest number, and as you can see, the per pupil revenue has dramatically decreased. So even though we have had to reduce funds in our school district as a whole, we have put a larger percentage of dollars into the classroom over that time. And we have also had growth every year during that period. So I think that this really shows, even though we had to overlay 3 different graphs, the way that we have approached budgeting is that we want a fiscally stable and healthy budget, and we want as many dollars as we can to go directly to our schools and to our staff. And at the same time, we recognize that we have to accommodate the growth of the new students to our district. The other thing is we put some parameters in place in collaboration with the board over the last few years and really created what we believe are healthy parameters for managing our budget and creating transparency and predictability in the way we're going to handle things. So down here you'll see the blue on the next graph is going to represent the legally required Tabor reserve. And that's a lot of, that's sometimes misunderstood. People say, oh, well then you have that reserve, you can spend it if you need it, but not really. That reserve always has to be there. And if you would have a catastrophic event, you would have to put it right back. In addition to that, we have earned savings. You're going to see this on that graph coming up through utilities, through fewer substitutes and other things over time. And we have reallocated those savings to specific expenses for schools and staff. You'll remember last year we did one-time pay increases. You'll remember last year we gave one-time money to our schools that this year we've now made reoccurring money. But at the end of the day, what we have to do is when we realize savings, we allocate those savings to schools and staff, and that's going to be represented in red. The green will be, as you know, a few years back, we changed our policy and stopped saying if you don't spend it, you'll lose it. We allow our schools and our departments to carry forward dollars to save for something bigger, and that's going to be represented by green. The board policy DB and the financial reserve and contingency dollars will be in purple, and then district savings will be represented in this little tiny blue color. So here you can see over time, using those same labels, what we've done here is we've created an apples-to-apples comparison. We've applied these fiscally healthy parameters that we have developed, and we applied them backwards. So you could literally see year to year, because every year GASB rules change or different things happen, people really have a hard time seeing what the net impact is. It's very challenging. It's a little bit like the CDE, School Improvement Framework. When you change the rules every year, it's a little challenging to compare one year to the next. So what we've done here is very intentionally created those policies I just showed you, those fiscally healthy parameters, and applied them backwards over time so you can see what has happened. And you can see that here in 2009 is the year of the letter of credit because we did not fund the Tabor Reserve with cash. So you see that that part is upside down. And then you can see as we have come up that we have funded our Tabor with all cash. You can see that we have completed the board reserve and contingency, where here we did not have those things. You can see that we have, our departments and our schools have grown their carryover, even though we have really encouraged them to spend it. We have told them that we believe that the fiscal days of improvement are ahead, and that they should spend those, that they're welcome to spend them for staff. They have been very conservative in their budgeting. And Dan tells me that this year they're actually spending quite a bit of this, so the green bar will be shorter next year, but we'll see. And then the red again are these dollars, and Bonnie's going to talk about this later. These are dollars that we put into one-time salary increases, as well as one-time improvements to our SBB funding. And as a result of these healthy fiscal parameters that we have put in place and moved forward, Douglas County year over year has continued to enjoy a AA+ bond rating. And I'm not sure which year it was. I think it was my second year here. Bonnie will probably remember this. We really had to work with Moody's and Fitch to help them see the parameters we were putting in place and the positive direction we were going, because they were concerned about some things in the past, and so they were just wanting to make sure that we had a good plan going forward, it was stable, and that we had this. And so you can see in their quotes, the management team has displayed a comprehensive conservative budgeting approach designed to reduce reliance on levy and growth-related financial pressure. So they recognize that those parameters that I just discussed were improving the fiscal health of our school district. And as a result, as you all know, we have saved millions of dollars and been able to refund and refinance our bonds at a much lower rate. And you can see the different dollars. 28.8 bond refinancing saved taxpayers about $110,000 a year. And there was more than one of these refinancings. Simultaneously to all of these other things, we have worked to reduce central administration costs. And of course, that's how you put more dollars in the classroom and improve the percentage of dollars. And so you can see here, the central administration, which is actually a relatively smaller group, has come down over the past several years. And the FTE have stayed stable. The reason this red bar is just a tiny bit higher is because last year we did have that percentage increase for everyone. And this is just a reminder that para has gone up by 0.9% every single year. The district has covered 100% of that cost for all employees. And we could actually add the next one on here. It's going to continue to go up another 0.9%. And as we stated last year and earlier this year, we have budgeted for that, and we will be covering that $2.2 million for all employees again, and continue to put a generous amount into the future retirement needs of our staff. And back to that comment about the red things and being able to reallocate dollars toward one-time increases and one-time costs at our schools. We have done a lot of things to save money. We've scrubbed line items. We've really tried to reallocate in the best needs and really align to what we believe is best for our students and staff. And here are just the energy dollars that you can see, the savings that we were able to reallocate into the system. The other thing we've done is we've reduced costs and things that historically were part of the district budget, and so this was one of those things that we have eliminated. And we've shown this graph before, but it does demonstrate the level at which Douglas County School District teaching staff, leaders, and others operate as one of the leanest metro area districts, one of the leanest districts in Colorado at this total, and this total amount includes our mill levy override, so that's why you see a little larger number than you used to. That's 6936. You can see that the folks that have similar achievement to us, when you compare us to our peers, have significantly more dollars that they get to apply to their budgeting and their funding. And not to pick on anyone, but Boulder's at 86 and we're at 69 is a significant difference in the amount per pupil. If you take that across 65,000 students, you're going to have multi-million dollars that we could have in Douglas County if we had those same levels of funding. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Brian Caesar, who's going to talk about our commitment and goal to attract and retain the highest quality of staff for our students.
Thank you, Dr. Fagan. Just a few slides on the HR update. We're going to go through about 4 or 5 slides, but next board meeting, we're going to go in a little bit of a deep dive on some of this stuff. This is a 4-year look on both the certified and the classified applications. Over the last 4 years, you can see that the number of applications to Douglas County School District has been growing considerably. We put in a new system this year so you can see a little bit different format on 2013 because we're only halfway through the hiring season. So those numbers will change as we get more data, and hopefully on the next board meeting, we'll have a lot more data to share with you on that. But the interesting part is that the number of applications, even per posting, are going up. You see a number of posts and people would think, well, we must have a lot of openings. What you got to remember on a number of posts is the fact that when you hire somebody, you could be pulling them from another school, therefore you have to repost and backfill that position. So it's not the total number of openings, but it's the total number of openings across the district that we have to fill from an internal and external standpoint. This is a look of the retention and or, if you want to flip around, turnover in the last 4 years. You can see that we, in the classified ranks and the non-certified, that our retention rates are going up. You're going to see a little bit of a dip, and I'll talk about that in a slide or two about the retention for the certified or the licensed staff. But quite frankly, over the time, it's pretty flat. And if you compare these numbers with other districts, we're in really, really good shape in comparison. Here's the reason why you can look at predominantly the licensed staff and why there's a bit of a change there. And it's not too much of a change when you look at overall percentages. But when you drill down on the number of retirees, that has spiked in the last year. That's predominantly due to the elimination of the extended service severance. So what we did basically is we offered that program up for people not only this year, but next year, a reduced amount for those that would have been eligible next year and the year after that. So basically we're looking at 3 years of people's eligibility compressed into 1 year. That's why there's a difference in the spike in that area.
Excuse me just a minute. Could you please explain what the extended severance payment is?
Sure. In the certified world, we had a payment that was based on certain eligibility. So if you're within District 15 years and you're retirement eligible, for that time in your position, you got a payout based on your average compensation. And it was roughly on average, about $43,000 payout that people would walk away with.
Just to be clear, when a teacher or retired in the district, they would get a $40,000 payment, and then they would progress into the PIRA system right after that. And we simply eliminated the $40,000 payment at the point of exit.
True. Well, we didn't eliminate, we reallocated the funds into compensation and other
So that
dollars.
would explain why people might want to retire now to take advantage of that.
Correct.
And wasn't it actually, it was eligible for retirement, correct?
Correct. Well, I'll turn this over to Dan McNiven.
So I get to talk about the good stuff. I came here 11 years ago, and one of the things that attracted me to Douglas County Schools was a relentless pursuit of student achievement. And that has not changed in Douglas County Schools. Many of your students have benefited from the tremendous teaching and learning that goes on in our buildings on a daily basis. So these next few slides are a tribute to what's going on in our buildings right now, the work that our principals and teachers are doing on a daily basis with students. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the accreditation status. If you remember back in 2009, Douglas County Schools were accredited with distinction. That was based on an accountability system prior to Senate Bill 163, which Liz already alluded to, changed the rules for accreditation. 2010, with the passage of Senate Bill 163, the accountability system changed to a district performance framework system, which is what we currently use. Since 2010, we've been accredited every single year in the midst of still ever-changing accreditation statistics that we need to provide. So for instance, in 2011, they added on-time graduation in addition to 5-year, 6-year, and 7-year rates. There were point values given for each one of those. In 2012, they added English language proficiency into academic growth performance indicator and added disaggregated graduation rates. So all of those things result in points that go towards your accreditation status. So Douglas County Schools still performs very strongly on those accreditation status points, and we look forward to continuing to move forward. TCAP performance since 2009. The purple bar indicates what we performed last year in 2012. You can see that our numbers have stayed the same or exceeded every single year in performance of students that are proficiently advanced on TCAP. So our scores have stayed right where they've been. Those are very high performing scores. Those are one of the highest in the state of Colorado, and they'll continue to be that way this year. School performance ratings. This is the way that the state of Colorado talks about schools, and their highest rating is a performance plan. You can see that 95% of our schools 2 years and 94% this last year were in the highest rating that could be afforded to schools in the state of Colorado. There's an improvement plan, there's a priority improvement, and there's a turnaround. And you can see we have very few of our schools that are involved in those specific plans. Again, 95, 94% of our schools. So we're talking a huge percentage of our schools have the highest performance plan that the state can afford. Strong ACT results. You can see since 2006, Douglas County Schools have performed very favorably in ACT. And if you remember, ACT is one of the gatekeepers for higher education. Students have to perform at a certain level. You also need to remember that every single junior in the state of Colorado takes the ACT, and our ACT scores rank among the highest in the state of Colorado, and they've also improved since 2006. This is another myth that's been perpetuated out there about graduation requirements. I was looking around the room when I knew I was going to have to present this slide. The only people that were in this room when Douglas County Schools changed their graduation requirements were Director Williams, Nona, and myself. That was in February of 2009, and that was in the midst of the budget cuts that Liz already showed you were happening. We went from 25.5 credits to 24 credits. Still the highest in the Denver metro area. We have an excellent graduation rate, okay? And when you look at graduation rates, you have to take into account that previous slide. If a student only has a bar of 18 credits or 20 credits to graduate, as opposed to 24 credits, that would impact this number. Our graduation rate is still among the highest in the state of Colorado. And you can see it's improved every single year. 81.9 to 87.4 on-time graduation rate right now. That isn't even taking into account the 5-year plan, the 6-year plan, the 7-year plan. When you put that into the equation, our graduation rate goes even higher. We have a decreasing dropout rate. And I know that this number doesn't match the number that was previously shown to you because the dropout rate is not the exact opposite of the graduation rate. One of the things I figured out is you have to have a doctorate in math statistics to be able to figure out that 0.8. So I will be sitting down with Director Silverthorne to figure that one out. But the point of this slide is that that number continues to drop in Douglas County. So we're still serving kids. We have fewer and fewer dropouts every year than we've had in the past, despite having more students. The remediation rate is another indicator of how well your students are going to do when they matriculate to Colorado colleges. And you all know that many of our students go out of state. So the remediation rate doesn't count those kids. One of the things that we've tried to do to combat this 25.6% number is offering concurrent enrollment in our classrooms. So for instance, a student that potentially could be a remedial math student could take a college algebra class as a senior in high school and get concurrent enrollment and have an opportunity to combat that. But we've taken specific steps to try to continue to drive down this remediation rate. Again, one of the lowest in the state of Colorado. We believe we have the most CDE school awards in the last 3 years. John Irwin Schools of Excellence. Those are the highest performing students and schools on TCAP. And the Governor's Distinguished Improvement Award is a new award that had started happening, I believe it was 3 years ago, but that's all about improvement on TCAP. So not only having high-performing schools, but also having schools that continue to outpace other schools in the state of Colorado in growth, we think is very important. And we have several schools that are involved with both of those awards.
As a parent in the school system, I can't be more excited about what we were able to do here and be able to see the kind of innovation that's coming out of our high schools. It's critically important that these students are going to be world-class students coming out of the Colorado area. Very excited and very passionate about the fact that we were able to engage at this level and really see what they were able to produce.
So that's an exciting clip. You met these students, I believe it was the last board meeting we had, and you saw the fruits of their labor in terms of developing an app that's going to go worldwide. Isn't that what we want our students to do? Take the base knowledge that they have and turn it into something that's going to create a better humanity. That's the power of that clip. By the way, Chris Bluter is one of our parents. Thousands more AP tests taken. This speaks to opportunity for students. And you heard Ken and Sophie talk about this, but we had kids that decided once they weren't locked into 7 periods a day, 5 days a week, and knew that they would have some time during the day to study, they made a decision to take AP classes and challenge themselves in our buildings. And you can talk to any one of our building principals and they will tell you that those numbers right there are a direct result of the flexible scheduling that we have that started a few years back. In addition to AP, we also have more students taking IB tests. Thunder Ridge High School started an IB program a few years back, and now they are beginning to have students that are taking IB tests. You all know those are rigorous tests as well that are aligned to a stringent curriculum that provides students opportunities for college-level coursework. Many more kids taking opportunities there. Here are the numbers around the IB programs of students that are earning the IB diploma, okay, in addition to the AP. So let's talk a little about concurrent enrollment since 2009. I think Director Williams, I believe you may have been the only one here when we started this program. We started out with 5 classes in 2009 in this vision of, you know what if kids could take a college level course at their high school using their awesome teachers and get both high school and college credit for a low cost. We went from 5 classes to 54 different classes offered in this current year. We went from 91 students to over almost 3,000 students involved in concurrent enrollment. We went from 4,100 credits in 2010-11, saving $834,000 for parents, to almost 9,000, saving almost $2 million. Now, please keep in mind that that credit that those kids would be paid for, that's calculated at the ACC rate, which is a lot less than a kid that matriculates to a CU or a CSU or out of state that credit goes with them. So that $2 million is very, very conservative. So next meeting, I get the unique opportunity to stand in front of you and talk about a high school bell schedule study that we've been working on for about the last 2 months. One of the things that was really bothering me was the whole discussion about losing instructional time and huge course loads for teachers and all the myths that were out there. And so what we actually did is we took bell schedules for every one of our high schools and we laid that over a calendar of what actually happened last year and this year. We did the same thing with teacher loads. We pulled every single schedule out of Infinite Campus for every high school teacher we have, and we're comparing their schedule last year, actual numbers of kids in classes that they gave a grade to their schedule this year for actual number of kids they gave a grade to in classes. We found some really interesting data that I'm excited to share with you next time, but I'll give you a teaser of what we found so far. We only have 7 schools completed because we're talking about some serious time doing this data analysis. But what we found is the instructional time to earn a 1.0 credit in our high schools, on average across all of those 7 high schools, increased by 3.24 hours. Okay? There were 2 high schools, one in particular, that the instructional time to earn 1 credit increased 40 hours this year. Another one increased 38 hours. So people that are concerned about instructional time, they should be visiting those schools to talk about that schedule that those schools have in play. Other buildings made other decisions. So for instance, if I'm at a school of 2,200 kids and I know they have to access lunch, I'm probably not going to have them have a 30-minute lunch. That creates a safety issue with kids leaving the parking lot. I may increase my lunch time knowing I'm going to decrease my instructional time a bit to get there. The other interesting thing I found was in one of our schools, they ran the exact same schedule this year as last year, and they lost 5 hours. Any guesses why that would happen? It's because the way the calendar fell, okay? There may be different logistics happen across the school year with the calendar. For instance, last year there was a February 29th. This year there was not, okay? If you make a change of 1 minute across 180 days, you lost 3 hours, all right? So when you start talking about 7 hours, 8 hours, 9 hours, it may be as easy as a 1 minute change. So our building principals are taking the feedback from the kids around advisory time and around things that they want to see happen in their schedule, and they're continuing to refine those schedules. But Steve Johnson and I'll be back next time to talk more about it. The average teacher load in a semester increased by 5 students, or 5.33. Remember, we added another class. So logic would tell you, wow, I added another class, they're going to have another 25 or 30 kids. Not true. 5.3 students. The average load changed. The average class size decreased by 3 kids, went from 28 to 25. They can tell you the impact in their classes, what it looks like. This was a really interesting number. I went through and calculated this number of semester classes that were over 30 in 2011-12 versus the number of semester classes over 30 in 2012 and 13. And I found that there was a difference of 213 classes per building. So some of our classes had 400, 500, 600 classes, individual student classes that were over 30 kids in them. And by making a schedule change, that number was driven down. The teacher class averages of 30 for a semester. What that number is all about is if I have 5 classes, and each one of them have 32 or 33 kids in them, I have an average load of 32 or 33 kids for my whole schedule. What that number represents is a decrease of 55.5 teachers that have semester loads that average 32.
that number really represents is the number changing on average in our buildings from 66 teachers or 66 semester worth of kids to 11. 80% decrease. Teacher load of over 180 kids per semester. That's the magic number that I think everybody heard, wow, that's going to be violated regularly moving forward. That number increased by 2.83 teachers in our buildings. That number hovers somewhere around 14 or 15 semesters of a teacher having more than 180. Okay? The majority of those are PE classes, are music classes. I mean, Kurt Stroman at Reading High School has over 400 kids involved in his choir program. Obviously, he violates the 180. Great teacher, loves having kids in his classroom, a great, huge choir. You all have heard the great things that Legend High School does. That's a picture of what that 180 looks like. So, last thing I want to talk about is the TEL survey results. I know you've probably seen these and may have some questions, so I'm going to run through these pretty quick. The entire package is available online. Anybody in the world can look at it. We're really proud of the work that's going on in our schools. These TEL results reflect what our teachers believe is happening in our schools. Okay, so their interactions with staff members, with administrators in their buildings, that's what's telling the story here. Number one, really proud of participation. Okay, the last time the survey was given, there was less than 50% of our schools participated to the level to be able to use the data. This time, almost 72% of our teachers and staff members could participate. We feel really good about what these numbers are going to tell us. When you look at us versus all other Colorado districts, kind of the limiter that I used was if our number was greater than 3% agree above the state number, that was a place that was above state average. 3% above, 3% below, I call that at the state average. That's significant. And below that 3% would be below the state average. There was 97 questions. 77% of those questions were above the state average. Every single one of those 77 questions was 3% or more of our teachers agreed with that statement, more than the state of Colorado. 16% at it, 7% below. So doing the math, that's roughly 7 questions were below the state average. By the way, 3 of those questions were brand new this year. The opinion change in our district since 2011. Okay? So all of our teachers' responses in 2011 versus all of our teachers' responses in 2013. Again, the same thing. Statistically significant if it changed by greater than 3%. So if in 2011 they answered a question and 50% of the people agreed, and in 2013 53% or more agreed with that same question, that would be the improved. Again, 67% of the questions. There was 94 to be compared. Okay? There was 2 questions that declined since 2011. One of them was technology, and that number went from 92% to 89%. All right, so you're still talking about almost 90% of our teachers agreeing that they have access to technology. The other one was around fairness of evaluation. Here's just some specific questions I pulled out. Teachers are effective leaders in this school. Almost 90% of the respondents agreed or strongly agreed with this statement. That's 5.9% higher than the state of Colorado. And this year, that's 6.2 better than in 2011. Resources are available for my professional development. 78.4% of our teachers agreed or strongly agreed with that. 10 percentage points higher than the state of Colorado. Almost 10 percentage points greater than the last time we did a survey. Community we serve is support this school. 90%. That's 8% higher than Colorado, 4% better than 2011. Teachers are held to high professional standards for delivering instruction. Almost 95% of our teachers agreed or strongly agreed with that. That's higher than the Colorado average, that's higher than the last time. My school is a good place to work and learn. 85% of the respondents in 2013, 2% higher than Colorado, and 0.8 better than the 2011 result. So, I'm going to run through these really quick, but really the way I look at these graphs when you're looking at them like speed dating here is the dark blue is 2011 in Douglas County, the light blue is 2013. So in that particular graph, you can see that those numbers went up from 11 to 13. And then we throw the state numbers in on top of that. Okay, so you can see Colorado 2011 is the farthest one to the left. Colorado 2013 is the third one over from the left in each one of those questions. And I know the questions are very small and hard to see, so if you have specific questions about the questions and you can't see them and you just say, wow, I can see from that graph it's lower, tell me what that one is, we can just do it slide by slide if you want to. Okay? This is all about school facilities and resources. Support and involvement, community support and involvement in your school. Managing student conduct in your school. I believe every single one of these was higher than 2011. Teacher leadership in your school. So it doesn't look like this one's going to populate. We'll make sure that you get a copy of this. This actually had the 2 questions or 3 questions that were our lowest questions. Those are the farthest ones on the left, talking about teacher evaluation process includes instructional strategies, talking about fairness of evaluations in my schools, talking about components of the teacher evaluation process, accurately identify effectiveness. Okay, let me ask you a question. Any of you a Denver Bronco fan? Okay. Remember the game against San Diego, the first one? Okay, out in San Diego, I'll refresh your memory. I think the Broncos were down 21-0 at halftime. 24-0. I'm sure there were people that were questioning Peyton Manning and spending millions of dollars with Peyton Manning. Ever heard of the implementation dip? Okay. I think that that may have something to do with this. We are one of the only school districts in the state of Colorado. I think there's 23 that are at varying degrees of piloting some state evaluation. Either the state evaluation system or our own evaluation system. And so I believe that part of the answer to that question is around where are we in implementation. If you remember at the time when this question was asked, our teachers had not gone through the full cycle. Now I'm under no illusion that everybody is extremely happy with what we're doing with evaluations. I think we might get a different result now than what we had then. The one that is really interesting to me is the one about teacher evaluations are fair in my school. Okay? Because in some schools, some of our teachers responded very favorably to that question. Said, yeah, I think they're really fair in my school. In other schools, they did not. And so I think we have to dig into that data specific to those questions a little bit further. I don't know if you saw the article in the Denver Post about these questions asked across the state. There was lower results across the state. Okay? And it's because people are at different places with the evaluation system. Bottom line, we had to put in an evaluation system. Either ours or what the state required of ours, or the state model. We made a decision based on our community and our teachers and what we wanted to accomplish in alignment with the strategic plan to put in the system we did. We're looking forward to working with people around those measures. Oh, there they go. They're not populating. I don't want to press them every single time.
At least you can see that those ones are empty.
Oops. Okay, there we go. This is school leadership in your school. This is a direct reflection of the work that our principals do with their teachers every single day. you can see that every single one of those is higher than in 2011, and it's also higher than the state in both years. So this is about school leadership making a sustained effort to address teacher concerns. Leadership issues, facility and resources, use of time in my school, it's been a topic this year, professional development, empowering teachers, on down the line. What this tells us is that our building principals do a great job of working with teachers around the specific concerns that they have in their buildings and trying to address those. Professional development has been another topic, and I have a few slides at the end of this to talk about the different things that Pat McGraw and his team have done to align professional development in our district to our strategic plan. I doubt that anybody can really read those questions at the bottom, but we'll make sure that you get the specific printouts from the TEL survey, and happy to field questions about those in the future. Instructional practices in supporting your school. So these are really small. So on the far left, that's a question about state assessment. And really what it is asking is, state assessment information is available for me to have an impact on student learning in my classroom. You can see that score went down. We get TCAP results in August, okay? That's another reason why we're working on a balanced assessment system within our own school district to be able to give real-time information to teachers about student performance, not have to just wait on TCAP. That's what that question was about. The other one was state and local, the third one over. State and local assessment data is useful to me in my efforts to improve student learning, okay? State and local assessment data. I think that has to do with timeliness. The final portion is talking about DCSD supporting innovation. I think it's really clear that that starts at the top with you. You take a look at the things that we're trying to implement and have been fully supportive of the things that we're trying to make happen in our school district. Talk about professional development courses and alignment, and Pat has already done a great job of preparing this and showing this to you. But the point is this, is we realize that one of the things that's going to make a huge difference for our staff members is professional development. And we've taken the things from the strategic plan and we've aligned what we're doing in our classrooms and what we're having teachers take professional development on to the specific strategic plan. So you can see the participants and the course sessions offered have both increased over the last 4 years. This is just a few pieces of paper that talk about the different classes we have. That's right, only 262 unique courses for our teachers. Okay? They can personalize their instruction just like we're asking them to do for our students. Talking about our students, world-class tools. You can see that world-class tools have increased greatly. How much does this have to do with that question about access to technology? I mean, that represents on the far right a tremendous burden on our network. So when the network's down, if people are more in tune with using these tools and they can't use them, that's obviously going to affect that. The other point of this is we do have an expectation with our staff that kids have access to world-class tools. And now we've done a couple of things. We've provided more tools, we've also provided more access. So that number will continue to get better as well. With that, any one of us is able to answer questions for you.
Well, there was a tremendous amount of information. Director Richardson.
Could we go back to the slide on the accredited with distinction?
As long as we don't have to go to the one where we go.
Yeah.
Way back there. That's the actually the first one.
Yeah.
Students, you're dismissed to go get ready for your test.
Good luck with your test. Good luck with your test.
That's the one.
Thank you. Good luck.
So our antagonists have put out, spent a lot of ink cartridges printing up flyers saying that this board's pursuit of choices for parents and students and paying our superb teachers based on their superb performance has resulted in a downgrade of accreditation from distinction to accredited. A couple of questions to refute that, I think, ridiculous charge. The 2010 accreditation ranking took place probably about a few weeks after this board got its card keys to this building. Is that a fair statement? When does the accreditation decision come out?
It comes out in the fall after the previous year.
Okay.
Based on the performance of the previous year.
The previous year. So that was not to blame George Bush, but that was from the previous board and the previous administration's work effort, if it were relevant. But second, as you pointed out, Director McNulty, the standards changed, and so that resulted in a change for virtually all the districts in the Metro Denver area, I think with the exception of one. So all of the accredited with distinction districts, Boulder and Cherry Creek and other sort of peer districts also went from accredited with distinction to accredited based on the change in the methodology. Is that correct? Okay. And then lastly, I certainly care about the opinions of our colleagues in the Colorado Department of Education and value their opinions. But isn't it true that we have higher standards than they do? We've set higher expectations for our district than they impose. Is that also true?
We view the state standards as our foundation of our expectations, and the expectations we set above those are the expectations we measure with our local assessments.
So I think those are 3 points that we need to get to our community, and to our constituents and to our parents and other stakeholders to counter this ridiculous charge that because this board has pursued more choices for parents and to pay our superb teachers according to their superb performance, that's resulted in a loss of our accredited with distinction categorization. We have plenty of material that seems to be rebut that successfully by that charge by our usual antagonists.
Well, and one of the points to make to add to that is as the balanced assessment system evidence is available to be used, we can actually use that to impact some of the indicators that they measure and show the different performance that we have, and we can counteract those ratings.
Yes, I guess I would just say, this is obviously one slide. I don't mean to focus on that because frankly, your presentation about the performance of our high schools in particular, and generally all of our schools, just reflects a stunning and commendable improvement in outcomes. So you're to be congratulated, and I think eventually the Colorado Department of Education will catch up.
Director Williams? I'm swimming in my skin. I'm so excited to see this. I remember several years ago, we as a board, we wanted to blur the lines as much as we could of students going from high school to college. And college is very, very expensive, and it's getting more expensive as time goes on. In fact, it's increasing at the rate of double of inflation. And we are providing some classes for students.
As a parent in the school system.
That one was even pertinent too, about the AP classes. That one. What a monstrous help this is to our taxpayers and to families who are burdened with the costs of college, and how ready the students are to be able to go and take these courses. It is so commendable. And the fact that also our graduation rates have gone up 3%, and the dropout rates have gone down. We as a Board of Education give you guys instruction and vision, and what it ultimately results is we want to see better student achievement. And this presentation is screaming student achievement all over it. It's so incredibly exciting to see. And I just could not be any more proud of the job that you guys are doing and like Director Richardson said, these points that we are so proud of are going to be hopefully shouted from the rooftops. There are so many that would like to say that we're failing, and we are not. We are progressing. Let me tell you, I have a lot of kids, as you guys know, and my students are go to Frontier Valley, and I was talking to the principal there. We had a third grade opening. There was 181 applicants for that, and he got an application for the Teacher of the Year in a school district out of Georgia where there's over 100,000 students. He got an application from her along with about another 100 that were completely qualified. And regardless of what bitter teachers who are leaving the district who do not believe in our vision are saying and getting on board, getting on TV and making a name for themselves personally, in spite of those misleading truths that are being said, we are doing so well as a district, and the performance of our students is increasing, and I could not be any more proud of you guys.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. One of the things when you were talking made me think of this time last week, we looked at a world news report around number of schools that were at the highest level. And we looked at the data, and some of our principals came back and said, but wait a second, my AP test scores are higher. My student achievement is higher in my building. How come I'm not in that U.S. News and World Report top schools? Well, yesterday we got information from another group, Newsweek. 6 of our high schools are in the top 40 in the state of Colorado and in the top 2,000 across the country. So the difference is the way that they measure in those individual, for lack of a better term, competitions around those lists. The way that they measure those is a direct indicator of that. Now, 3 of our schools were not on that list, and you will go, well, what happened to them? One of them was Legend. One of them was Mountain Vista High School, okay? This is a direct result of what's happening at Legend and Mountain Vista High School. They have kids that are taking advantage of concurrent enrollment. The Newsweek report does not report concurrent enrollment. It's all about the number of AP tests students are taking. So our schools, because of these opportunities we provide students in AP, IB, and concurrent enrollment, they're able to personalize their education for what fits them moving forward, not what's going to get us on the list. Okay, we're really proud of the schools that are on the list. Absolutely, those 6 high schools, they deserve that kudos. But the 3 that aren't on the list, they deserve kudos too, because they're doing the exact same things with a different vehicle of choice for students.
Dr. Silverthorne.
Well, it's my hope that you guys have put out something to the press about those 6 schools and then 3 other schools, so I'm going to do work for them to help the public understand that we have excellent high schools here. I can't really articulate any better than Director Williams about how excited I am about swimming in my skin. That's a new one. About this presentation. It's fantastic. Thank you guys for putting this together. I know it was a tremendous amount of work. This was billed as an update to the strategic plan. Are you planning to create a new publication as we have on the website, etc.? I assume you're going to create an update to that.
We are. We're going to create multiple approaches to that because different people like different amounts of information. So there will be one comprehensive document that takes all of the data and all of the narrative, puts it together in one gigantic 50-page report, sort of a 2-year state of the district. And there will be one that is a 12-page version that is really boiled down tightly for people that would prefer that. And then we will literally have a 1-page front and back for places when sometimes we get asked to go to Kiwanis or Rotary in these places, and they really just want a 1-pager left behind for them. And then we also have a card version, which has a QR code on the back where you can use your smartphone to scan, and then it will take you to all the different levels of the report. So those are almost finished. Finishing touches being put on them.
So we've been promised updates from Mr. Caesar and Mr. McMinimy. I assume those will be integrated into your new reports.
They are, yep.
Thank you.
Very good. Dr. Mendoza.
Thank you. This is excellent overview. Charter schools, is there data? Their data is all in this as well, our charter schools?
In the student achievement data, that's definitely in there. There are certain things where charter schools have total autonomy and they choose to participate or not. And so sometimes their data is not in there just because, for instance, certain charter schools elected not to participate in the TEL. So their data wouldn't be represented there, but they always have the option. We work really hard on what we call level playing field, where charter schools can purchase as much or as little services from the district as they'd like and participate in as much or as little, as long as they're meeting the sort of board policy regulations and agreements that we have agreed to during their authorization process. So if we have it, it's in there. If we don't have it, then it's not.
So a great example is the distinguished schools, the growth, that piece is in there, the John Irwin schools.
They're in there.
folded into that. Those are two good examples.
So how do we know how they're doing overall, though? I mean,
we have obviously the CDE achievement data, et cetera, for them. The process that we have used to really approve their progress or not is through the reauthorization process. When they come back before us and they submit for reauthorization, they provide all of that data about, here's what we said we were going to do, here's how we're doing, and they show that, and then the board decides whether or not they're going to continue to authorize that charter school or not. So we really do give them the opportunity between those time periods to grow and change and learn.
So they also have school performance frameworks from the state
From
of
CDE,
Colorado
yeah.
that reflect TCAP results and all the other things that all of our other schools are measured on. They're part of that process as well.
One other point too, when we get the second tranche of HR presentation, I would like to see, because I do think it's quite relevant, if we could display the turnover rate that we see we have those data from the CDE in our peer districts. The great exodus of talent that our usual antagonists are suggesting is occurring. As our data show internally, longitudinally, our turnover is quite stable, right around 10%. Notwithstanding the incentives that come from phasing out the extended severance payment for retirees to accelerate their retirement, or eligible for retirement employees to accelerate their retirement. But I would like to see displayed with the presentation the turnover rates in Cherry Creek, the turnover rates in Littleton and Boulder, and based on my review of the data, and I've shared it with members of the public, we're actually below their turnover rates. So that seems to also be missing in some of the propaganda that we're seeing. Can't be true.
It's interesting, I'm sorry, Mr. Larson, it's interesting to look at some of the headlines, because there's a headline the other day that said over 300 teachers leaving Douglas County, which sounds pretty exciting, but it could have very easily have said that the last 4 years, the district maintains the same turnover ratio.
We're in fact 300 leaving, there were no new additions. I mean, that's not 300 leaving, is it?
We're over 700 leave Cherry Creek, a smaller district.
Right.
And Dr. Benevento is correct. We actually have added $200 per student to our schools, as you all know, and many of those schools have used those dollars to post for new staff members because they'd like to bring down class sizes or add programs. As I visited schools in the last couple of weeks, I've had many teachers say, and we're adding another health teacher at Mesa next year, and we're adding another this, and we're adding another that. So there's growth at some of our schools, there's new dollars at some of our schools, so definitely some of those postings are for brand new positions.
In other words, they're talking exodus, not to get a little bit biblical, but they're talking exodus and we have the numbers.
Well, we have the truth, and we have and we have the truth. So I just think it's important to bust these myths that are out there that are based on people just making stuff up, and get the true data to our stakeholders, get the true data to parents, get the true data to people that are interested in the future of the district, and let the data drive the story. It's a compelling statistical presentation, very well thought out, and I think the data will be quite compelling for what we're doing.
I just have a quick follow-up. Thank you. So regarding the additional funds to the high schools, I know that translates to some new people per high school and some new classes where students will be able to take as many classes as they choose to take. Is that going to be part of your presentation next time? Can you talk about that now? What would you prefer to do?
Well, Liz just said Bonnie's going to hit that, but I can tell you in our schools, they've done a combination of things. They've used those additional dollars to purchase more teachers for specific class sections for students to partake in. We told all of our principals at the very beginning of the whole scheduling process we're going to fund the classes kids want to take. If that means more additional resources from our district have to flow to you to support that schedule, Castle is a great example. We went back in and gave them additional FTE to support the schedule that they want to run. But every single one of our buildings, students had more opportunities, and there was no moratorium on you can only take 6, or you can only take 7, or you can only take 8. I mean, we didn't make those determinations. That doesn't mean that kids weren't shut out of the class. If there was only 2 kids that wanted to take a class, we wouldn't run that class. But they used the normal rules, somewhere around 10 to 12 or 13 kids, you may be able to run a section of that. And it also depends on where that class lays. Like the highest level math course, if you get 10 kids to that place, you need to provide that opportunity for them, either through a class that you offer, or a concurrent enrollment opportunity, or an online opportunity, but you need to find a way to make that class happen. Whereas if it's a different class, it's an entry-level class, that 2 kids sign up for, you may not offer that. You may say, you know what, I'm going to wait till next year and offer that, and every other year we're going to offer it to try to pick up kids for it. But the point is, our principals took those additional dollars and they put them where they most deemed it to be necessary. Through RTI efforts with students that are struggling, through additional sections for kids, through additional resources for their building, we give them that freedom.
I think that's an important point that Dan made. Devani's going to talk about it again, but I'm glad you asked the question, Director Silverthorne. 100% of student requests will be funded next year as long as the section has enough students to run it.
Were you leaning toward Benevento?
Well, I was just saying what Mr. McManus said, and that's it, but allowing the schools to make decisions, putting the power, putting the decision making in the hands of the people who are best designed or best in the best position to make those decisions is the Pell survey is a direct result of that decision making process. So, and I can anticipate that our antagonists joined, or which this has nothing to do with you or the leadership team here, they're exactly wrong. It has everything to do with the decisions that have been made. You take power and put it in the hands of the people who are best placed to make decisions, whether that be principals, teachers, students, parents. Let them make the decision, empower them to do that, and we'll have the best outcome possible.
Just to add to that, I mean, that's one of the most remarkable things about this district, and the most remarkable things about the talent that's at the helm here and the table is, not only are you incredibly skillful leaders, but you've given up power. You've given up power, and you push power to the most decentralized edges of the district, to schools, letting schools make decisions about how they want to spend the money, who they want to hire, letting parents make choices about what school they want to send their kid to. That's a remarkable and unique thing. There just aren't many districts in the country, let alone Colorado, where you have a leadership team that has the grace, the sense of confidence in our employees and in our parents and our students to say, we're letting go of power. That is a huge differentiation in this district. And I think these results reflect that grace.
And if I may,
and if we could conclude our remarks on this item, I think we have a
just
few more
get
covers.
warm.
Director, that's what I'm afraid of.
If I may contrast this against Jefferson County. Jefferson County, the threats that were coming from the Jefferson County administration, that if they didn't pass their tax increase, that they were going to end their music programs. Now contrast that with the leadership team that we have here in the Douglas County School District, who we hire an executive who comes in and turns over all these stones, comes to us and says, did you know we're giving teachers $40,000 in order to retire? Did you know that we're paying union staff $300,000 a year to do what? We still don't know what the answer to that. They were able to use this. We are more physically sound. They have given up the power and pushed that to the schools, just like you said. And schools have been able to save their money and do that. And yet we get criticized because the schools are saving money. I think that there is a complete contrast to the administration that we have versus our neighbors directly to the west in Jefferson County, who say they put students first, but I can tell you everything that I've heard tonight has been students first, and I'm very, very happy. In case you guys can tell.
I concur, and I suggest we move on to the next item. School Board Superintendent's report.
Next, we're going to have a brief presentation. I know I've said that before. I didn't say the last one would be brief, though, so I warned you on that. We are going to have a brief presentation on part of our new pay-for-performance system called Professional Pathways. And I'd like to introduce Dr. Christian Cutter, as he and his team have been the leaders of this work.
All right, good evening. We are halfway through the marathon we call it. We are a little less than 19 hours away from the first completion of our new evaluation system. 5 o'clock tomorrow, and hopefully we're still not here, we will have all the teacher evaluations completed in this site for the first time, the inaugural year. Now, we have done presentations to you over the course of the year around market pay and bringing people in. We've talked about compensation. We've gone over the evaluation itself. Tonight, we're going to talk about the enhancement to that. We recognize the monetary bonuses that are part of the plan, but there are other tangible and intangible ways to reward our staff. I'd like to introduce Marie Unger. She's been actually leading this committee for over a year now, and she's brought Chris Page with her. They're going to talk about the progress we've made and where we are to this date.
Well, good evening. It's great to be here, and I'm glad to have Chris Page with us. Chris is actually a walking example of a professional pathway. And I know earlier when Dr. Fagan talked about big data and how we were kind of looking for the name for big data, professional pathways have kind of been the project that has had 3 names that we're trying to land on one, but we've landed on the name of professional pathways. It started as career ladders. And honestly, that's where our work started. We felt that it was important to really research what are career ladders. We looked at different successful organizations. We looked at how do those organizations recruit and retain and develop their employees. What are the paths that they help to develop for their employees so that they can keep the very best and brightest with them. From there, we recognize that in our system, we have an interest in being innovative, and we have an interest in being unique in the opportunities that we can provide our teachers. And so that's how we came up with the ultimate definition that you see up here and landed on the term of professional pathways.
Now, with professional pathways, we talked about what were our outcomes. What are the outcomes that we want to see from this? And the number one outcome was to attract individuals. We wanted people to want to come to Douglas County and to make sure that we provided them with the tools to feel like they could see success, that they could grow as professionals. And then to retain the great professionals that we already have in the district. And we're going to walk through a number of those ways in which we would retain those people, but making sure that some of our really good professionals, we put them in spots that they feel they can really grow. And obviously to develop them as a world-class staff. Next, we wanted to provide valued added career opportunity aligned with the DCSD vision.
Alrighty, so the best way we thought to explain this is we have some fictional characters we'd like you to meet. So we've got Natalie up here, we've got Eddie, and we've got Annie. We'll talk about what each one of those characters represent in our organization. Basically, if you look at Natalie, Natalie is going to represent a new teacher. If you look at Eddie, Eddie's going to represent those experts that we already have in our system. And if you look at Annie, Annie's going to represent those people in our system that are very ambitious. They're ready to move fast through a system. They want to develop themselves maybe through a different career. So let's start with Natalie. Natalie's new. We've just recruited her. She's focused on the classroom, as she should be. She's first and foremost focused on what she's doing in the classroom. But as Natalie's skills increase, so should Natalie's opportunities. Opportunities for her to pursue different pathways as she develops herself as an individual in our system.
Next, we have Eddie the expert. Now, Eddie's someone who's probably been teaching in our schools for a number of years. He's a fantastic teacher. He's got a lot of tools, but he wants to know, what can I do with those tools now? Where can I go in my own pathway of development? Are there any other opportunities for me that I can be able to share my knowledge and share my expertise with other coworkers or just grow as a professional?
All right, and last but not least, don't laugh. Ambitious Annie, which is many of us, and yes, that is me. At the age of 10, I knew I wanted to be a principal. So yes, that is me. My first year of teaching, right here at Douglas County School District. I was a first year teacher at Roxborough Elementary School.
Is that Aquanet?
Isn't that amazing? I think it might have been a bi-level perm. I'm not quite sure. It was pretty fabulous. It was puffed. Oh yeah, we used to tease the bangs. It was 80s, definitely. However, isn't that amazing? When I was 10 years old, I knew I wanted to be a principal. And so I knew there were certain things I needed to do. That was my ambition. So when I was a teacher, I had the opportunity of having a person who helped me figure out what my pathway was going to be to develop myself. From there, I had the opportunity to be an assistant principal, then a principal, had the opportunity to open up Stone Mountain Elementary School. What I didn't realize was there was still a pathway for me. And at that time, I thought principal was where I was going to end my career, but as I had the opportunity to explore other pathways, that's how I got to be in the position that I am now as a director of elementary education. So our hope is our professional pathways are opportunity at our fingertips. The way we've come up with this is we've grouped the pathways basically by interest. There will be an opportunity for teachers to self-select that category and or develop some of their pathways in collaboration with their evaluators. We'll have descriptions for each of those pathways. We're working currently to identify the quality measures for each pathway. That's part of where the pay for performance components will come in, so we can have the different quality measures. We'll have links to professional development so that if a person's interested in pursuing a particular pathway, there'll be a direct link to understand what professional development they might need to pursue in order for them to move forward in that pathway. And then we'll be developing pathways for a variety of different job classifications. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as we continue through this.
And it truly will be an opportunity at our fingertips. We've created an interactive icon, and this is a little different than the one that we've decided to settle on, but the interactive icon will be a place where teachers will be able to hit the ring, and it's going to spin to the different subcategories, and then they'll be able to touch base on the subcategories, and it will take them to those different pathways. So teachers will literally have it at their fingertips of different decisions and places they can go with their careers.
So as Chris said, actually this graphic right now is kind of the temporary graphic that our committee developed. We're working with Randy's team because we really want it to be interactive. We want you to be able to hover over any one of those four main categories. From there, up will pop all the pathways that would exist in each of the subcategories. If you're interested in that, then up would pop the actual skills, responsibilities that would come with that. So as you can see from this slide here, currently we've identified there'll be four major categories for people to choose from their interest levels. Within each category, there'll be subcategories. Currently, we have, and we've started just with classroom teachers right now. So currently, these are the current number of pathways that we've identified within each of these subcategories. If you see at the bottom, I have the total number of pathways, but it is growing. The more we present, the more we share, the more we provide people with opportunity to give us feedback, those pathways grow because there's pathways we haven't considered. And we can imagine that those will continue to grow. In fact, we've talked a lot in our committee, just as we do with kids. As kids can't even predict what jobs might be existing for them in 5 years, in a truly innovative organization, we don't know what pathways will exist for our organization within 5 years. The other piece is that within each of the pathways, it'll be clearly articulated what the responsibilities are for each of those pathways, the skills that are needed for each of those pathways, which will have, like I said, live links to professional development. So for example, if a pathway requires a certain amount of skill in communication, there'll be a live link that would take them to the PD catalog, where all of the classes, all the coursework in communication would be available to the teacher's fingertips so that they can register for those courses to improve their skills in pursuing that pathway. Another thing that we have identified and are currently working on finalizing is certain pathways. The reason the teacher might pursue that is because it might be the incentive behind it, might be because it's really great for their resume or their own skill building. In other pathways, we want it to be part of the pay for performance incentives. So it might be a bonus incentive for them. As we develop the quality criteria, we will differentiate that criteria so that a person who maybe was a mentor for a teacher for, say, quarter and really help them just in one small intensive place would receive a differentiated type of pay than somebody who maybe spent a year with a colleague, mentoring that colleague in a variety of different ways. So we'll be developing the different quality criteria in that. The other part of this is we're aligning it very closely to all the parts of the system. So these are our learning progressions that we've worked with our Center for Professional Development. If a teacher, for example, is very interested in restorative practices are aligned to their site evaluation. There will be live links that they can then click on restorative practices that would take them to opportunities that would be professional pathways in that category. Similarly, these are some of our learning and leadership opportunities. Each one of these would be identified as a pathway for a teacher, so that everything that we're doing in our system is aligned to the opportunities for our teachers. So as I said, Chris is actually a walking example of a testimony of a pathway, but I wanted to also point out that we have on our committees, we've worked with the teachers that have helped us to develop this. We've really been thoughtful about the representation of those people. We've wanted those people to represent all the different people that I introduced you to in our fictitious characters earlier in the presentation. So we have a new teacher, brand new teacher, sitting on our committee who's talking about, wow, this is amazing, this is exciting for me as I think about developing my career. We have a teacher who's in our committee, two teachers actually in our committee, who are very, very happy with being classroom teachers, but they are expert teachers. And they really want to give back to the system their knowledge. So we're getting their feedback as well. And then we have a person like our Chris Pager. He'll talk a little bit about his situation.
All right, so for me, when I came to the district, I'm like, man, I just want to be a teacher or be in the classroom for 30 years. This is the job I want to be in. And so as I came into the job, I started realizing that I was actually pretty good at it, and I was growing and developing, and I'm like, so what happens next? Where do I go? I know I want to be in education, but do I really want to be in the classroom? And as time went on, different opportunities opened up. I became a department chair, I learned a lot of leadership tools there, and then this past year I served on as the dean of instruction at my school, and now I just recently got hired as the assistant principal at the school. And so for me, my pathway has been growing as I go on, and I'm seeing these different doors open. What we love about this, about the professional pathways, is that it's going to allow teachers to be able to sit there and really start to chart those things out. And if, as they're going along one pathway, they realize, maybe this isn't the way I want to go, they'll be able to go over laterally to another pathway that maybe aligns a little bit more, where they've done some of that pre-work.
Alrighty, so next steps. Our next steps after updating all of you is to update our principals. We are currently working with all the different job-alike groups so that they can be developing their own pathways. We want pathways to be for every single staff member in our organization. So if you are a person who's interested in, you're currently maybe a school nurse. We talked about an interesting aha we had the other day was a school nurse's pathway might be to become a classroom teacher. They hadn't thought of. So every single job-alike group will have an opportunity to develop their pathways, as well as different departments contributing to the feedback to make sure that we thought of those things, as well as include an opportunity for a pathway that may exist that we don't even know of yet. So how does somebody create their own pathway as we continue to move forward? We'll be developing a webinar that will inform and solicit feedback from the entire system, so that our entire system has an opportunity to give us feedback. We can revise, adjust, change what we need to as we move forward, so that it will be ready to roll out for the 2013 school year. So there you go.
Well, thank you for a great presentation. Well worth the wait. Do any of my peers have some questions?
I've been mentioning my hot tamales.
This is the kind of thing that attracts the kind of people that we want and helps cultivate them so they can progress in their career. And Maria, I know I've talked with people from your school and Patty back there at her school that were not happy y'all left. In fact, I got pinned down and was demanded answers on why in the world we would let Patty leave. And we had to say, this is Patty's career. We can't close her off because this is her career, and if this is her desire, this is the kind of people we want in our system. And that was the first time that I really had to give a made-up answer to that, but it was didn't turn out to be the correct answer. But I can't express how much this is good, because we want teachers coming in who know and at least have a shot at going as far as they want to go. If you come in and know that there's just no chance of progression, boy, it can be a stagnant thing. And a lot of people come in and they think they want to be teachers for 30 years. And it turns out that everybody needs to be stimulated mentally. And so this is a great program, terrific.
Thank you. That's one of the pieces of feedback several members of our committee have given us as we've done this. They've said, I didn't even know some of these things existed for me to try. And that's part of why we want to make sure it's there. We want to make sure we retain them as well.
Well, this is exciting too, because it's important to have fair compensation and attractive compensation. I think for many teachers too, it's what they're doing with their job and what motivates them that's going to keep them interested. And at the same time, while there might be pathways to do different things, and there's traditional progressions and there's non-traditional ones, I think I'm seeing here too that teachers that want to stay in the classroom and have become experts at it can still do that, being mentors, and they don't have to leave the classroom, which is where that's their wheelhouse, that's where they love to be. They don't have to be the principal if that's not what they want to do in their town.
So that was very important to our committee. We wanted to make sure we honored both. And whether that's a classroom teacher, whether that's a classified person who's the secretary to the principal or the assistant principal, we wanted to honor some people. Their give back looks different. It doesn't necessarily have to be a different career.
That's great motivation.
Well, thank you. That was excellent. Thank you.
Okay, we're in the home stretch here on the superintendent's report. But this is really good news, so you're going to want to hear this one. Call it best for last here. Next, we are going to sort of combine here. Bonnie Bett, Chief Financial Officer, is going to do both the third quarter budget to actual funds report as well as the recommendation for the preliminary budget for fiscal year 14. So she's got this all tied together.
I'm really glad that you guys are all really excited right now, that they all jazzed you up for this presentation. What's next? They always say that when you're doing math, you should be doing it in the morning, not at almost 11 o'clock at night.
It's almost
So here's the very, very good news. So we have the legislature's completed their work. We have some clarity in terms of what our new dollars are going to be. We have totally scrutinized our third quarter financials, so we know what we can expect in terms of savings that can be allocated out next year. And so we're ready to tell you we've got more good news. So right now, for our students, we're putting back $13.7 million back into our schools. $200 per student, which we've already told you about. Again, $125 of ongoing money and $75 per student of one-time money. And in addition, $2.1 million funding high school student requests, as Dan had mentioned. Over nearly $500,000 of that 2.1 is going to fund specific high school student requests. And also school innovation. As you've seen from our choice presentation, we have a lot of schools working on innovation type things, and so we've put those out there. We believe these are one-time requests, and we've got these accounted for and able to move forward. For our parents, we talked about this earlier as well, $1.2 million, the elimination of the technology fee. So what about our employees? We've determined, because of the good news from the legislature as well as additional savings, that we will be able to compensate our employees with a total 5.2% increase in compensation, a total of $15.7 million going back to all of our employees here in the school district. So 2% ongoing average salary increase, roughly about $6 million. 2% average one-time pay in September, comparable to what we did last year, $6 million. Please let me explain to the average. As you know, we're really driving evaluation and performance, and we're really basing our compensation increases on our evaluation process this year. Para increase, we've already put that aside, $2.2 million. And then we did see some benefit increases that we are able to absorb, though those benefit increases have been passed on to our employees that have dependent coverage. So again, all of those things, we are truly allocating out our resources to the priorities of the strategic plan. We really want to make sure that we are providing enough support to our schools so that we can prepare our students for a future that they don't know what it's going to look like right now. We want to make sure that they can compete on that world stage, and that at the same time we want to improve the quality of life for all of our employees. And still keeping the eye on the ball and making sure that we continue to improve and maintain the district's fiscal health. So I wanted to give you some specifics about the legislative session. The 2014 School Finance Act state appropriations, a total of $5.5 billion, an increase of $210 million over last year. The statewide district average PPR increase is going from $6,474 about to $6,652, a 2.7% increase. Lo and behold, I just can't help but pointing this out. But Douglas County is still $6,388, still a full almost $300 less than the state average per pupil revenue. However, we're seeing an increase of $165 per student. The last time I shared with you, we were just under $160, so we got an additional $5 per student. We're not going to give anything back. We're happy to have anything that we can possibly get. And then the state stabilization factor, the results did draw this down a little bit from 16.1%, that's the negative factor, down to the 15.5%.
Just a quick question on the two slides, this one, the previous one, and this one.
Sure.
So our revenue, actually the one before that, our revenues are going up 2.7%, but we're actually able, according per your proposal, to increase teacher compensation by 4%. So our revenues are 2.7, but we're pushing even more money to compensation for our professionals.
That's correct. And the reason is we have the savings that we're able to do that. Yeah.
That was the red portion of this year's, right? That was right color?
That's right. That's right. The red portion represents the one-time cost, the September.
Available to set.
Exactly right.
The total comp is 5.2 with the para.
5.2% of the paramedical.
Yeah, and that's on average. There will be some employees who are highly affected that will be much above that, or people who are significantly below market as a result of pay freezes over the past few years.
I guess, and maybe it's preliminary to say, do we have the 4x3 matrix kind of filled out, but if we're going to center it on 2 and 2, do we kind of know what the corners look like?
You know, we were hoping we would, but we don't have the evaluations. They're not due until tomorrow night. So as soon as we get that, we'll have that.
Okay. So, so the legislation is sitting on Governor Hickenlooper's desk. He has not signed off on it yet, though we expect it not to be an issue. So the increase in PPR again for Douglas County is $165 per student. Total new dollars then to Douglas County for 62,246 students. I need to clarify that. That's funded pupil count, not enrollment, okay? And so that would amount to $10.3 million. The distribution between our neighborhood schools and our charter schools is $8.9 million to $1.4 million. And then this legislation did include a $20 million statewide increase to special education funding. Our portion of that we expect to be about $1.5 million, which we expect will totally offset our increases in special education costs for the 2014 school year. So we have those monies accounted for as well. So, the other point I wanted to make here is the increase in funded pupil count is 1,302 students, again, funded pupil count. And remember, we've got 2 new charter schools opening up in the current, next year. So, again, just wanted to make sure that we're talking about how are we funding this. You asked the question already, but average raise for employees is 4%. And I wanted to point out, we've made a decision that really those employees who've been here prior to January 1st are the ones that are really going to be evaluated and really should be compensated, because those after January 1st, theoretically, they would have had the higher pay. So we are limiting that to all employees who started at Douglas County prior to January 1st who were evaluated. So this year, a little bit different. We want to make sure that all those that are evaluated, whether they're a .2 teacher or a .4 teacher, they're still going to have an opportunity to see a pay increase, because what we care about is the quality of the work that they do in our school system. So 2% average ongoing raise funded with $3 million of the new state monies and $3 million of salary savings. Again, making a commitment that any compensation savings we see will go right back into compensation. And then 2% average one-time pay funded with 2013 savings. Talked about some utility savings still, talked about benefit savings and salary savings, all going to the bottom line to increase our carryover into 2014. So these are just kind of a high-level budget line comparison. So para, 0.9% every single year. Every single year the district has absorbed those costs since 2011. Medical insurance, we have seen increases in medical insurance, but because of the health of our medical fund, as well as the health of our district budget, we've been able to absorb these increases for our full-time employees that we are providing the benefits to. These increases have been passed on again to employees with dependent coverage, but we've been able to absorb these where we have not had to increase the budget in this line. Utilities, this is really amazing to me that we started with a budget in 2011 of $14.2 million in 2011, dropped it down by $500,000 in 2012, dropped it down to 12.8 in 2013. The plan is to drop it down to 12.1 million in 2014. Those dollar savings, we're planning on reallocating to fund our safety, our Marshall program, to make sure that we're expanding coverage to our elementary schools throughout the school district. And again, even though we are planning on doing that, we're still keeping enough budget capacity here to provide for fluctuations that you can expect in utility usage throughout the school district. Okay. And then finally, special education, $46.2 million. This is our local share. This would be our maintenance of effort share. We have kept it the same through 2013. The reason we were able to do that is carry over in our federal dollars. We're driving expenditures of our federal dollars to preserve this maintenance of effort, keeping our costs actually to our charter schools lower because they're purchasing our special education costs. So we need to drive up the revenue, so we've been using our federal dollars. In the current year, we are expecting increases here, but again, we do have the revenues from the new state revenues to absolutely offset that increase in costs. Again, I wanted to let you know what our assigned ending fund balances are. So Tabor again, the BOE reserve, that's the Tabor plus an additional 1% due to the contingency requirement. This is our extended severance and early separation agreement combined. That's our remaining liability. That will be probably $1 million at the end of 2014. $75 per student to schools at the one-time money to SBB. School request, that's at $2.1 million, again, that we already talked about. That's funding student requests as well as innovation efforts of some of our schools. A para reserve for 2014, and then inventory and prepaids, which we can't really spend anyway. And that's been pretty consistent over the last 3 years. Bottom line, almost $20 million of savings are going back to our students and employees that we're already planning on. So, 2013 third quarter financials. I'm going to zip through these. You have the report attached, and I did ask Janet to put up one report that I just wanted to point out some specifics that we haven't talked much about in a while. First of all, we already talked about this. This is reflective of the commitment we make. We say we're going to spend the dollars, and we have spent them or allocated them out in the current year. These were our reserves and our savings last year that we immediately allocated out back into the system. So this is exactly what we're planning on doing going into 2014. Again, these were commitments that we made early on to help us understand how we are projecting our ending fund balance and our savings. If 100% of our department school carryover dollars are not spent, of course it's going to go back to those schools and departments. If 100% of the board's contingency budget line is not spent, you will be hearing in the next month about our master capital plan and our needs. We have identified for certain $30 million that are urgent needs for our facilities that are totally separate from anything else in our budget. We want to mitigate some of those by making this decision. So that's the plan, is to transfer it to our capital projects fund. And finally, commitment that 100% of pay for performance is not spent. I think this will be ongoing. We'll make that commitment to continue to drive all the savings back into that pay for performance line. Again, it's very consistent with our strategic plan and our hopes for the future regarding our personnel. The only reason I presented this to you is I wanted you to see the fluctuations in the revenue. So looking here, in 2012 audited, we had received just under $443 million, and we're looking to receive almost $449 million. That dollar amount difference is really reflective of the growth that we've seen in the school district. Because remember, we did see an increase of about 1,600 students in the current year, even though our PPR was flat. In addition, we've been, again, continuing to look at our revenues, look at our expenditures, look at trends and how these items are changing year over year so that we can properly project what we expect to get in future years. So we've never done this before, but we have these items. This is the federal revenue, Medicaid, preschool revenue, school-based revenue. All of these have been lumped into other for a long time. The reason why I felt it was important that we put these out there is because of that, what was $16 million, nearly $7 million is revenue that totally stays at our schools. So these are donations, these are fees, all of those things that the district has no discretion over. Some of these revenues are also contributing to the growth in the savings at our schools. The other thing is the state charter construction grant. Formerly, the administration did not account for the revenues and the expense, the thought being, well, hey, it comes in and it goes out, so let's just not account for it. I feel like it's more, it provides more clarity and transparency to account for it, so we are going to show the revenue and we're showing the expense, so that the taxpayer can see the in and the out associated with the state charter construction grant. And those dollar amounts are associated with our two relatively new schools, Ben Franklin and STEM, and so you should see additional dollars going to Aspen View and probably American Academy in the future. So utility report. I brought this up as, and we've already talked about it, but this is the budget for the current year, and these are the expenditures to date, and this is the expected or the year-end projected expenditure. We did get this from Lee Smith. So you can see that there's $2.8 million of savings here. So $700,000 is still going to leave us $2 million in there. The other reason I wanted to bring this up is that $2.8 million of savings, if you recall, you did approve the energy performance contract to start work on Douglas County High School, one of our most needy schools. So the beauty of this is that we're using savings from utilities to fund future savings in utilities. So I think that's a big deal that we're doing that. And you will see in our final budget revision, you will see that these monies are going to go into our capital projects fund to actually fund a portion of that capital investment. Okay, so next steps. Budget adoption, May 21st. Information only. We're targeting the proposed combined general fund budgets to you. It can be posted, and we're required by state statute, of course, to have that posted for a time frame, which we can gather public input. We're hoping to have all of the funds to you in that executive summary format so that it can truly be proposed and people can really look at the detail if they wish. In addition, June 18th is when we need to approve and adopt for 13-14 all of the budgets, the budget resolutions, appropriation resolutions, etc. And then finally, again, we felt that this was such good news and wanted to sum up the entire presentation with the fact that we're recommending a 2014 budget adoption that includes an average raise for all employees of 4%, 2% ongoing, 2% one time. Average raise of $12 million, parent increased medical benefits, total employee package $15.7 million, a total of a 5.2% compensation increase. And then again, all employees who started at DCSD prior to January 1st are eligible for this. And then in addition, for our students, $13.7 million back to our schools, $2.1 million funding high school student requests and school innovation, and then for our parents, elimination of technology fee. So, that's it.
tremendous information again. Director Williams?
Thank you, Bonnie. One question I have, the recommendation of 5.5% overall, 5.2 overall? 5.2, okay. So the recommended 5.2%, that's across the board with everybody. Help me understand when we talk about our, the board's vision of paying the higher performers. Your recommendation is that every single employee does get the raise?
No.
Okay, so I missed that. I'm glad I'm clarifying.
That was the center point. That's when I asked about the grid. We're gonna see the variation depending on your evaluation and your market.
It's an average.
Okay, got it.
And we're gonna get that detail next week.
Okay, that I asked. Thanks.
That only applies, as you said, to folks that were.
Glad I asked.
That's incredible.
I would like to bring up one thing, this was the thing I forgot to present to you all. Is your head it up? Sorry. Can you bring it back? It's there. Oh, great. The only reason I brought this up is because this is our building fund. So this includes our COP proceeds as well as our bonding dollars. So this is projected for the end of the current fiscal year. And the projection is assuming all of our bond dollars are totally spent. So these remaining $18 million is totally associated with our certificates of participation. Aspen View, of course, we incentivize them to locate in an area in which we needed the classroom space. So their $15.5 million is in here, and what's remaining to be spent is $1.3 million that's designated for Aspen View. It's important that we know that that needs to be held or assigned in this fund to them, leaving $13.5 million for Douglas County School District. That money is primarily from Skyview's payoff of their COP. And this is the money that operations is planning to spend over the next 2 years to help mitigate our most urgent needs out in our facilities. So this is the last funding that we have available to date for our facilities. That's my
I think we're very fortunate to have good leadership on our financial picture, to prepare us and then to implement it. And actually, again, the message can't be said emphatically enough and often enough that this is, anyone who can follow the presentation was just made, that we plan, we budget, we have contingencies, and now we have priorities. I hope the colors might help people see the path of when it moves from one year into another year. This is why we, in spite of tight finances, what we get from the state formula, that we're still able to reward our teachers in a way that keeps them attracted, appreciated, and hopefully continue. So thank you very much. Okay, we are completed with the superintendent's reports. And one of the president and vice presidents are not here, so that should shorten the time for that this item. I did just want to point out again, I had a great opportunity as someone who's been invited by the Chaparral patrons of the performing arts. The last couple of years I've gotten to participate in their gala. Last year live, and this year I got to do it virtually. So from Nebraska, I was able to submit a winning bid, and that afforded me the privilege of conducting the orchestra last evening at their concert, and that was a blast. And the kids are extremely talented. They have a number of ensembles that we should be very proud of. So just wanted to share that was something fun I got to do. Any committee and liaison reports that you want to bring to the attention? I think normally those are communicated and already known, so we will now move into the public comment section. And so I think we are quite familiar with this. We have 4 speakers that are scheduled. And so, somewhat similar to how we did this last meeting, I'm going to establish, at least when I'm in charge of this, the Larson norm, which will be, I'll afford you 3 minutes to give public comment, but I'll do it when you hit the 2-minute mark. In other words, when there's 1 minute remaining, you'll get a signal. If it looks like a 1, tells you have 1 minute remaining. That way we don't have to make any big ceremony about it, but that way you can keep your flow of talk, but be aware that the time is approaching. So, as a reminder, we generally don't engage in discussion or Q&A directly, but often we take the feedback for deliberation, or we can take it for follow-up and advisement. Occasionally there might be time where we can give a direct response. Depends on the situation. With that, let's just proceed. Our first speaker is Roger Bianco. Thank you for your patience and perseverance.
Thank you guys. I know you're not bringing it down. It's 11 o'clock tonight, so thank you. My name is Roger Bianco. I'm a father of 2, soon to be 3 young children in the Douglas County Public School District. I became involved in what you all are doing, or interested at least enough to pay attention, when you pursued the choice program, the choice scholarship program here. As a parent, I imagine a lot of parents in Douglas County ask this question, that is, how is that going to impact my children in the public school system? Is it going to do any harm? And so I took it upon myself to do a little bit of research on school choice programs and what they do, and not just their impact on the public schools, but their impact on a number of other things. And what I found was something kind of counterintuitive, which is that school choice programs have shown in many instances to actually improve public schools. In fact, there was one study that came to my attention that was very compelling. It was a paper of 22 studies by 11 institutions written by 13 authors and author combinations, where they examined programs across 7 states using 1 to 15 years of data and various evaluation methods, where they concluded that in 21 of these 22 studies, that the impact on the public schools was positive. So I just wanted to say thank you. This helped me allay some of the concerns I might have had about the Choice Scholarship Program, but I think that this could be very good in improving an already fantastic Douglas County Public School District. So that's all I wanted to say. Appreciate it. I yield back the balance.
Thank you very much. I think we have a minute and a half of carryover time.
Assistant with the budget.
Our next speaker is Gary Colley. I'm not seeing him, but I don't know if he's still in the vicinity. Gary Colley. If not, Francine Thompson is next.
Good evening. I'm a little tired, so please bear with me. I'm here tonight to talk about house parties. As some of you know, I've been trying to attend house parties presented by the union and others that oppose our district's reforms. I was actually invited by Kevin Lung to attend a parent meeting put on by the union. They were seeking solutions, and it was being put on at the Castle Rock Event Center. I RSVP'd and was turned away at the door because I was not of like mind. Well, last week an opportunity presented itself that enabled me to attend one of the house parties by invitation of a friend. Director Silverthorne was also invited and we went together. It was an eye-opening experience. The main topics included the evaluation system, vouchers choice, lack of a teachers union. I do have to say that there was a teacher that was there, and the things that she had to say were quite impactful. The facilitator, Cindy Leitch, I'm not very sure if that's the correct pronunciation, told plenty of half-truths, and at one point accused the board of lying about the $83 million. She attempted to play on people's emotions by stating no one was listening to teachers. If Director Silverthorne and I had not been there, they would have achieved their goal by persuading those in attendance that they were right. We were the voices of reason. At the end of the party, those in attendance said that they appreciated the conversation and that we needed to have these conversations all over Douglas County. On a side note, Director Silverthorne did offer her presence at any future gatherings that they had, this group or any other group. I agree we need to have these conversations because the dialogue is important. I stumbled across this amazing organization a couple of months ago called Doug Co-Champions for Kids. And they have decided to host open house parties over the next few months in order to encourage these conversations. These will be open to all, whether you agree or disagree, and based on facts. No one will be turned away or disinvited when they show up. The plan is to invite a board member or two to each of these meetings. We had our first one this past Saturday. Directors Benevento and Silverthorne were there to present. It was quite successful. So we will be extending invitations to each of you, and please do not only accept our invites, but if you are invited by another organizations who oppose the reforms that you are pursuing, I think you should accept those. As a matter of fact, if there is a conflict, choose the opposition. Based on what I witnessed at last week, there is a reason they do not want to keep, there's a reason they want to keep board members and their supporters out. Thank you for all that you do, and know that there are plenty of people working together that support you in the reforms you are putting in place. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will certainly make myself available to any group or any individual that wants to have a conversation. And we still don't see Gary Colley, so our final speakers are David DiCarlo and Brad Wan.
You know, normally when that much good news happens, I'm in church. Am I allowed to say that as the ACA? I'm going to drag it out of your chance. I'm sorry, I know I'm in a public building. I've got a strange and mysterious visitor from the East tonight. Wanak the Magnificent has blessed us with his presence, and he's going to answer a few questions. I have some envelopes here. These envelopes are hermetically sealed, as any child of 4 can plainly see. They've been kept in a mayonnaise jar on Director Williams' porch since noonday. No one knows the contents of these envelopes, but through his strange and mystical powers and omnipotent presence, Wanak the Magnificent will divine the answers without having ever seen their questions. Are you ready, Wanak the Magnificent?
Absolutely.
I hold in my hand envelope 1.
$83 million, $66 million, and $25 million.
83 million, 66 million, and 25 million. List various erroneous numbers that those against fiscal responsibility use to describe the fund balance. Very good, very good, very good. Envelope 2.
Ready?
You prepared? You sure?
I'm totally ready.
All right, go for it.
Envelope 2. Douglas County classrooms, strong school coalition, and a crowbar.
Okay. Name 3 things that can make your brain soft. Okay.
Not good. Hey, Diane Radovich, cause your children to live in your basement until it's 26.
That's their plan, yes, I agree. Okay.
My borough pen.
Burrow pen.
That's right. Burrow.
Oh, look. Doorway flyers from the union. I hold in my hand envelope number 4. Are you ready? Are you sure? Are you certain ready?
I'm absolutely ready. Achievement drop. Loss of vacation, accreditation failing, and classroom size.
Okay, achievement drop, loss of vacation, accreditation rating, and classroom size. Name 4 debunked topics that will continue to stir in the rumor mill. Oh, he's on par. All right, I hold in my hand right now.
The final.
This is the final envelope. This is it. Are you prepared?
I'm ready.
Are you sure? Can you make the most of this?
Are
you ready to go?
Is it possible?
Go for it.
I can do it. Okay. A gorilla, a sugar daddy, a Viking, and a mystic.
A gorilla, a sugar daddy, a Viking, and a mystic. Describe 2 dads who have creatively collaborated to communicate to their school board. We just like to tell you all that the greatest leaders in history are those that gave power to people, not took it from them, that didn't collect it back. So, thanks, because we feel empowered. Great job.
Thank you.
It's somehow perversely appropriate that we made it to this hour, because that's when Karnak usually shows up.
Except I'm not in bed watching.
We'll now move to the acceptance of the agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda? Moved by Director Richardson, seconded by Director Silverthorne. Benevento.
Aye.
Carson is gone. Larson. Aye. Mendoza.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Silverthorne. Williams. That is adopted. We will move to the adoption of the consent agenda. We have a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Actually,
Then you have an.
I do have a question, and this one maybe for Bill. The $1.25 million improvement plan that's going to be for Chaparral, Ponderosa, and Hunter Valley, can you just give me just a brief overview of those improvements?
Yes, I can.
All right.
So at Frontier Valley, we've got some floor tile replacement in the cafeteria, VCT. At Ponderosa, we've got some main entry floor tile as well. We're replacing the intercom system there, and we're doing some roof work. And then at Chaparral, we're doing better than half of the roof at Chaparral. And also, at Chaparral, we're also changing out almost all of the door hardware so that it aligns with our security system. So it's kind of a rough overview.
Isn't there still some carpet issues in Chaparral? Is it getting
Not that is the highest priority. So, but there are some floor tile issues there. So
good, thank you.
Any other questions on the consent agenda? If none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Director Williams, second by Director Benevento. Benevento.
Aye.
Larson. Aye. Mendoza.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Silverthorne.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Adopted. We now have a first reading of the proposed student fees and field trip charges for the next school year.
Yes, it's me.
So you'll see from the attachments here that there is a number of changes we made in the proposed fees. What those are is basically structural changes. We didn't add any new fees to those, but what we did do was specify courses in which those fees would reside. Most of those courses are classes at the high school level that are elective courses that students can take that have some kind of consumable materials or something that they create or develop within that class. An art class, a multimedia class. So that's what we tried to do, and that's why you see that list is a little bit longer than it has been in the past, because we want it to be very specific. So a parent knew or knows, if I take course X, this is exactly what it's going to cost me, rather than showing up next fall and, okay, you're taking a multimedia class, so it's going to be $25. They'll know that up front. So that's the biggest change with what we did with the fees. Do you have any specific questions for me now? This is the first reading, so you'll have an opportunity to get in next meeting to further clarify. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that said, that was the first reading. We don't have to do any more than that except wait for the second reading. Okay. And we already handled the next item, so our final item is a motion to adjourn. Moved by Director Richardson, seconded by Director Silverthorne. Benevento.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Mendoza.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Silverthorne.
Aye.
Williams. Meeting is adjourned.